and we'll start over with the mute undone. So not only did I accidentally schedule this for 9 p.m. on YouTube instead of 9 a.m. my time, but did my whole intro muted, so that's fun. But I did manage to eat some food. Welcome in, everybody, because nobody heard me say it the first time. Yeah, yep. Welcome to the London Station. I was just saying I was running behind because hair and makeup was taking a while. And I was like, Janelle, just get it done. Janelle's my hair and makeup. Oh, man. Yeah, I was a little crunched for time this morning. Which is why it's good that I start Sundays at 9 instead of 8. So far, anyway. But I don't remember what I said with the mic off and on. Anyway, we're looking at Legend in the Mist, Hearts of Ravendale, Book One, The Dales. So more Legend in the Mist action today. The core rule set is, really about playing in any sort of fantasy world. But this is... Oh, thank you. Yeah, I tried something new. And it set me back. But this book is really about their take as the publisher themselves on what sort of the campaign world, the setting world that they envision as they were creating the game. So we're going to be in line for a bunch more great art, great vibes, and I actually got to make sure I do this correct because I was way behind on everything I was doing today. Okay, good. That's all set up right. Sort of. Don't need that because we're not doing Astro Prisma. What a day. I think I made an image for this. Let's just throw this back on there. Can I do that? Yeah, that'll work. 5 to 10 more minutes would have made all the difference in the world this morning, but that's all right. Let me check this real quick. If I want to have Adobe looking like this, and that is what we're going to work with. And this book actually starts with a comic as well. It's not an adventure comic like the rules book is, but I think we'll read through that for some vibe setting. And they can't get mad at that, right? Because that's good advertising. All right, I'm struggling with setting this up. Let's just transition over to that slide and see what buttons I got to hit to do that. Okay. Still not lined up how I want it to be, but we'll get there. So, here we are. Legend in the Mist, Hearts of Ravendale, setting Book One, The Dales, as mentioned at the top. We can just dive straight into it. Again, the 2-page art on the works that they're putting out for this line is just fantastic. And this is going to bug me, so I am going to straighten it out. Let me get you to your default settings, Adobe. Give me this. And then... Just a struggle of a day today. Oh man, whatever. Put it in the middle. There we go. So, gorgeous art to kick things off. And we're straight into it. So, here we go. The old kingdom of Gwyrdalin? That's how I would pronounce that. Gwyrdalin. Lies in ruins, its once glorious lands retaken by wilderness, where workers of miracles reigned now prowl capricious godlings, beastly creatures, and cold-hearted brigands. Yet, in a forgotten backwater, a seed has been planted, sequestered in the fertile soul of faraway mountain valleys, watered by ice-melt brooks. It is watched over only by ravens and by those who remember. And now all that is old wakens, for soon shall come the day this seed will be stirred of its slumber, and called to sprout stem, bough, leaf, and acorn, to return to its roots or face oblivion. So we all know here, we dive into the text. This is, of course, this is flavor text for the setting, right? But one thing I like about this is there is a sort of like a cyclical element going on here that you see in certain other media franchises, like the Wheel of Time, for example, is about the Wheel of Time turns and ages come and pass, and there's kind of this inherent looping that they go through the ages in order, and then they reset and they go back through them again. And every time, so far, the Dark One loses, and that's why the world exists at all, because the Dark One in the Wheel of Time only has to win once to destroy everything, whereas good has to triumph every time. So there's a feel here of this cycle, for me anyway, where there's a rise up and then a crumbling back, and there's magic that swells and then fades away. But what I see here is kind of that similar idea to Wheel of Time, where all that is old wakens, the seed will be stirred of its slumber, and it will either return to its roots or face oblivion. So that, to me, is kind of the stakes here. It's probably not going to be over the top in your face because, again, we're talking rustic fantasy. This is like the first chapters of a fantasy novel series where, again, you have your farm boy hero trope, potentially, and gets the call to action, and we go out and we see what we're going to do with it. So, but I like that that's kind of implicit there. Oh, and we do have our first little text call out. Mila, there you are, finally. Tyden, I'm going to call him Tyden. Tyden, what are you doing all the way out here? Uncle Tyden, what's past that ridge? Well, that would be Ashstone. I wish I could go there sometime. You do? Well, you can't go over Greyback Ridge there. That's too difficult of a journey. No, you got to go around west, through Soddenmore. Come on, let us head back. Summer's almost gone. Better get to splitting more firewood. But what's past Ashstone? Past Ashstone? Pastures around there, somewhere. And past that? South Crossing? Probably. And past that? Oh, you don't want to go that far. That's the Wanderlands, where no one with a dollop of sense would go. Everywhere outside the Dales is dangerous these days. Bandits, beasts, creatures of twilight. But they don't trouble us out here. And what's past the Wanderlands? By the lady, I don't know. I heard this tale once, saying that where the Winter King dwells, sitting on a throne of ice-clad mountains 100 times taller than any Dale peak, from there he rules over all creatures of twilight, the king of ghosts, who cannot be outsmarted nor outrun. You cannot hide from him, for he is the shade and the cold and the stillness of the night. He will take your shadow and put it in his cloak and force you to live in darkness forever. With the rest of his nasty children. Stop it. That's fine. I didn't see that coming. Nah, you don't have to worry about such things. They say no calamity has touched the Dales in 1,000 years. Our lives may be full of toil, but we live in peace. I'm not afraid. If the Winter King came here, I wouldn't let the cold get us. Oh, we got a big hero here. Careful now, King of Twilight. Don't you dare approach us. I'd wallop him with Dad's frying pan. Ha ha! That's the spirit. Crack! Whip turn. Is that her saying it? There's something out there. It'll be raining soon. Let's hurry home. Yes, Uncle. Ominous, beady, glowing dark eyes in the forest. And there you have it, Hearts of Ravendale. There's a little intro comic. I think it's really cool that they've kind of just decided, hey, we're going to do comic intros to our books. I hope they keep that up through the whole line because it's really neat. And I should mention, and I said this in my Blue Sky post, this is Hearts of Ravendale is the name of the series because this is book 1 of Hearts of Ravendale called The Dales, campaign setting book. So I presume, of course they can do whatever they want, but I presume that a future book in this line will be Hearts of Ravendale book 2, maybe the Wanderlands, whatever Uncle Tyden was just talking about out beyond there. I also like how it set the tone in that comic that he's like, he doesn't really know. He's like, yeah, there's a town out there in some direction. But that sets the stage to understand that these people and this default kind of rustic fantasy setting, the town that they're in is the town that they know, and the big world outside of there they only hear tell of through stories or people who are coming through, traveling, probably peddlers, merchants coming through the tavern, that sort of thing. So really does a lot in this starting section to evoke the tone, and I think that's pretty neat. All right, let's get to a one-page view so you guys can actually read. I just love the art throughout all of this. It's just gorgeous. This is a book that I didn't get the physical of, and I'm probably going to regret it as we go through this, because I backed just for the physical of the core. I'm kind of picky about my settings, and maybe a little vain, because I'm like, why would I want to play in somebody else's setting? I think I said that in a stream before. Like, I don't want your creativity. I want my creativity. Anyway, looks like my camera is clipping through here too. Let's fix that. Professional. All right, let's keep going. Legend in the Mist, Hearts of Ravendale, Dale's campaign setting book. Here's all your credits. Again, same. I would assume mostly the same names we saw in the book last week's stream. And our table of contents. So, what do we have to look forward to here? We have our introduction. Then we're going to do one chapter for Hill and Valley. And chapter 2, Past the Bounds. Chapter 3, Wake of the Old Ways. I think, we'll find out. I think Wake of the Old Ways, is a adventure that you can run just straight through this. Which, I'm also not usually the biggest adventure runner kind of person, but I'm kind of thinking maybe I should run that in our channel, because our time is a premium for everybody these days, especially if you're trying to be a GM and a player, and you're trying to make. And we were talking about this in another channel the other day. You're trying to make space for people. You're trying to hold space for people, and it's tough because it takes time. And I know there are people out there who are very sympathetic to GMs giving their time, and it's appreciated. But we the royal we those of us who want to provide space and tell stories and give experiences to our friends, we would, I think, universally do it 24/7 if we could. We just simply can't. So I might actually take a look at that. Not today on stream, of course, because if I run it, that would be spoilers. But they did section off here. That's what I wanted to find out, is how they did the layout. Welcome in, Tortuga. Late is relative. You didn't miss a song today, so it's all good. So we're starting small and going out. So chapter 1, Hill and Valley. This might be the extent of what we get through today, because I go as fast as a glacier on this stuff. But you never know. We might find things that we want to just blow past. And again, I can't, in good conscience, show the whole book. Here's a little art note that I think is cool. You see this little thing here? It almost looks like an artifact that's clipping through in the art, but this was all very intentional, and it's giving that sense of like where the horizon kind of disappears, but you kind of see things poking through the mist and everything. It's a really cool effect. Actually, the fact that this is a straight line here, I'm not an artist, but the fact that this is a straight line here communicates that is the front of like a mist bank. So, fog bank, whatever you want to call it. So, that's neat. Okay. On we go. The wind in the trees, child. That is all we see of the woven strands of starlight that guide our lives. Love that. Love it. I like stars. I like starlight. I like moons and moonlight. And I like weaving things. Again, Wheel of Time having a strong aesthetic of, the wheel is kind of like on a loom, and it's weaving the tapestry of life. And it's always referred to as the pattern and everything like that. So I'm always sympathetic to that kind of imagery because I just think it's cool. A thread is tugged away on high for some purpose invisible, some greater tale of which we are mere notes. And here upon the earth a life ends, turns, or begins. This is also evoking, I'm going to get it wrong, the Fates. In Greek mythology? One spins out the thread, one cuts it, that's death, and someone does something else. You can see how well read I am in this. But anyway, you have three options here. Either a life ends, turns, or begins. So That's evocative of that. For there is no weed nor blade of grass that hath no star shining above it, whispering to it, grow. That is beautiful. Oh my God. I have to just sit with this for a second. Oh, man. I don't know if that's just me, if that's hitting you guys. I love that. No weed nor blade of grass, because the differentiation between what is a weed or what is a desirable plant is subjective to our human leanings. A weed is just a plant that we've decided is a nuisance in some cases. And you can have invasive species too. But you can have invasive species that are not weeds. You can have certain grasses that once introduced into an area take over, and that's not desirable either. You do want to keep a harmonious balance. Double toil and trouble. Yes. We are getting way deep into sentence by sentence, as you would expect. So anyway, the star, they all have stars shining above them, which I love as well from a cosmological perspective, that we say, oh, are the stars out? Are they visible? Which is dependent on if there are clouds between us and them, or if the sun is blocking the light of the stars from reaching our eyes, because we can't process all that light and also identify the stars. But the stars are always there. And so every weed or blade of grass has a star shining above it, whispering to it, grow. I just think that's so beautiful. Yep. This is what we do here. Yet all our eyes could ever behold are the treetops rustling in turmoil, or swaying gently, or standing very still. A crow caws. Once or twice in your life you will heed this quiet moment. You will touch upon this world unseen with your heart. Only once or twice. Rest of the time you'll go on faith or be left to wonder. Oh, man. I don't know why I was hesitant to get this in physical. This is like, I don't know. This is like written directly to me. Also, this, once or twice in your life, you'll heed this quiet moment. That made me think of Deadpool. And that is speech in Deadpool 2. One or two moments that define your heroism. So I love that. But then it says you will... Stop it, Adobe. Stop it. Stop. You will touch upon this world unseen with your heart. Only once or twice. I love that. There's kind of a sense there, too, of... you don't know when these moments are going to come up in your life. We're veering off into just life now. But you don't know when these moments are going to come in your life. And this is almost speaking to me saying, if you want to be in the place to make those right decisions, to touch upon the world unseen with your heart, you have to be operating at your best at all times. Because what's the business principle? Opportunity is when preparedness and something meet. I'm butchering that, but anyway, it's a well-known saying that I can't call to mind right now. Anyway, the idea being that, like, you're only going to be tested once or twice, but that test is going to reveal who you held yourself to be in aggregate across all time. So, when I ended my first stream last week, I said, be excellent. That's an expectation I have of myself, and it's an expectation that I have of you. I kind of really mean that. And if you're having trouble being excellent, like, get in touch with me or somebody in the community, because I think it's really tough to find out after the fact that you haven't been living your potential and that a large swath of time has gone by, and you're like, dang, there's no time like the present. But I would be thrilled to have each and every one of us living our best life, contributing to the people around us from our strength zones and our power. This is an RPG stream. In case anybody's forgotten, I almost have. Unless you tread the old ways, these old twisting paths cannot be found, they must be shown. No book accounts for them, no map can trace them. One soul guides another. 'Twas always so, and those of us who walk the old ways can see, can hear the voices that stir the trees. For us 'tis not faith, but a feeling, at times murky, other times clear as day. If you wish, I will show you how to listen. Beautiful. Beautiful. I set that paragraph up really well. Just saying. Just saying I did. Introduction. Welcome to the Dales in the campaign setting of Hearts of Ravendale. Ravensdale. Okay. So the name of the campaign setting is Hearts of Ravendale in the way that the name of the setting for Pathfinder is the Age of Lost Omens, which is also an age within the timeline. But Galarian is just a planet in Pathfinder. The actual setting is the Age of Lost Omens. So this is Hearts of Ravendale, a rustic fantasy story for the Legend in the Mist role-playing game. With this book, you can do a bunch of stuff that we assume we can do. You'll need the core book. Using the abbreviation CBI for Volume 1 of the core book, the hero, and CB2 for Volume 2, the narrator. Right. If you didn't catch the stream last Wednesday, the core book itself grew to such a size when they were in development that they said to go to physical print with these, we need to physically separate the volumes. So it is coming out, the physical, in a 2-volume set, but it was always one product to start with. So it's one PDF, but there's 2 books. So that's what they're talking about here. So we will know what that means when we see it. CBI 78 or CB2. It's not an I guess. CB1 78, CB2 145. This is the first book in a series. Here we go. They're putting it all out there, and it contains all the background information needed for playing in Hearts of Ravensdale, detailing the Dales and the surrounding regions. The following books in the trilogy, already planned out. Hey, there you go. Will complete the tale, elaborating on regions and forces outside the Dales. I've not been following too closely. They've probably already revealed what those other 2 books are going to be, and I would assume they're actively working on them, because you don't go to print with something that says Book 1 on the cover, unless you're developing Book 2. And 3, if that. So that's good. A return to the roots of fantasy. Whereas Legend in the Mist can be played with any fantasy setting, like we said, Hearts of Ravensdale is dedicated to rustic fantasy and explores themes of wholesomeness, nostalgia, and pastoral peace, alongside mystery, peril, and a journey into a greater world. These elements are brewed together to create the feeling of a fireside story, a folktale, or a local legend. Set against the backdrop of communal countryside life, Hearts of Ravensdale features protagonists such as curious shepherds and wandering peddlers who are coping with their day-to-day challenges when something draws them to your inciting action in your classical fantasy structure. One way or another, they end up venturing into dense forests and forlorn wetlands, not so far from their home at first, yet worlds apart, for it is there, in the wilds, that the greater hidden world reveals itself, a world of supernatural creatures and powerful, terrifying magic, with which our heroes must now contend. There are rules for magic. We didn't get that far in the actual core book last week, but they are kind of modular. However, I'm presuming that there is an explicit magic setup for the Hearts of Ravensdale, gotta get that S in there, campaign setting. Without getting that far, my presumption is that this is going to be a very soft magic, by which in fantasy literature genre, whatever, you have soft magic and hard magic. Similarly, in the way that in science fiction you have soft sci-fi and hard sci-fi. Soft sci-fi is Star Wars, the Force, midichlorians, kind of can do whatever you want. And yes, I'm sure in the extended Legends books or whatever, they go into very very explicit detail on what you can and can't do with the Force and what it is, compared to like a Star Trek, which is doing its best to be a more science-based approach. In the similar sense, styles of magic where you have a hard magic system is going to say there are rules for how things work, and you can't just bend or break them however you please, which is a lot of what you see in magic systems in role-playing games, because you have a group of people trying to arbitrate what happens when you introduce magic into a moment. So you have a explicit spell that does an explicit thing, and it gives an explicit bonus. But also, there's the mechanics and the narrative, and those are not always at the same levels of soft versus hard. All that to say, I'm assuming we're going to be looking at a soft magic because of the wording that says, wherever I just read it, I don't know what got me off on this tangent, but it was something in this paragraph. Oh, yeah, supernatural creatures and powerful, terrifying magic. The sense that magic is, I believe, rare enough in this setting that it's actually kind of like unsettling. Again, I keep going back to Wheel of Time, but in Wheel of Time, you have your small little starting village, and an Aes Sedai shows up, and they're not like, cool, someone who can do magic. They're just like, whoa, like, don't talk to me. Whereas, Gandalf visits the Shire and everybody's excited because he's shooting off fireworks. They have no concept of how terrifying he can be, which makes me think of the scene where, where he looms over Bilbo and he's like, do not take me for some conjurer of cheap tricks. And he's just like, and Bilbo's terrified. So that's what we're looking at here, I believe. Onward. But there is help aplenty for such brave souls, because the world is full of enchantment, even if it does not seem so at first. Among the Dalish there are the mysterious practitioners of the old ways, who have preserved wisdom, lore, and sight beyond sight, and the creatures and extraordinary individuals the heroes meet along the way are not all foes. Some may lend a hand. A starlit web of past events and old, world-shaking forces is strewn upon the night sky for the heroes to reveal. Yet, most of all, the journey will reveal to the heroes who they are. Min says, I like when magic is kind of scary in the setting. I do too. I can appreciate being in sort of a magical cosmopolitan setting, like in Galarian, where magic is so commonplace that it's kind of like just an extension of yourself. So many people have access to it, whether they're studied wizards or whether they are given divine power, or anyway, it's very pervasive. This is an area where I'm excited to see Legend in the Mist, because it gives a very, very different tone than a tactical game, which is trying to give you ways to play with magic, because playing with magic is fun, and therefore you're going to have it, and therefore it's going to feel more everyday and more challenging to make it outstanding, so to speak. We were all thinking it. The other author that this is reminding me of, not that there's not a million rustic fantasy authors, but this series, Terry Brooks, Running with the Demon, is the first book in this trilogy. This is in modern time. I mean, I think it's in like the 90s, set in the 90s in like Ohio or somewhere around there. And it's like small town fantasy. But there's a character in this series, and there's a group of characters called Knights of the Word. And actually, the cover art of this book has like this. I think actually we'll get to the art again. It's in one of the coming pages. This kind of like woman in this like forest glade. It's holding some sort of magical font or whatever. And I think she's called the Lady in this book series as well. And so this kind of like hippie guy, John Ross, goes and finds her. Because he's just searching for this connection to the world and nature and everything. And she kind of chooses him as a champion, gives him a bunch of power, but it also comes with a downside. And he has a permanent limp in his leg. And it's like this weird, like, why would you cripple me and empower me? And it's one of those things where it's like to remind you that you are small and you are an agent of something bigger. This is a really great book series. And then I don't know if when he wrote this series, he was intending it to link it up to his Shannara books. But this series, this trilogy does stand alone. And then there's another trilogy that bridges the gap between that series and the Shannara books. And then there's another series before you get to the Sword of Shannara, which is the one he published in like 1976. But yeah, that whole feeling of like, there's a mysterious woman in a glade that offers you power at a cost. I just love that vibe. Unlikely heroes of legend and folktale. The heroes of Hearts of Ravensdale are diverse and harken back to folklore, from simple commoners who are nevertheless extraordinary to strange creatures seeking a new home and acceptance. While you can play as great warriors and powerful wizards, you could also play a farmer renowned for his big ears, who finds a fairy's crock of gold, a roaming forest warden who gets into trouble through no fault of her own, or a child who befriends a giant. Everyone has a place in the story, just in different ways. Now, this is also not just a setting thing. This is mechanically represented. If you recall, we briefly touched on the might rules in this game. So there are different levels of theme cards that you can have. There's origin, adventure, and greatness. And the way those interplay with one another is what lets you mechanically, this is again always the example they use, is to play a game where you have a Gandalf and a Frodo in the same party and still have it be engaging and fun. Only ever read the Bridge series. I don't even know what that series is. Didn't read Shannara or the modern books. Is the Bridge, is that within? There are like a dozen series in that saga, and I haven't read nearly all of them. I do love Terry Brooks, and I love Jack McDevitt. Those are probably two of my favorite authors of all time. But both of them fall prey a little bit to being a little formulaic, where you're kind of like, this feels like a book of yours I've already read. The magic is waning again, and the heroes have to like rejuvenate it. It's like, I feel like I've seen that before. Anyway, they're a good time. A closeness with nature. Life in the Dales and in the world at large is lived close to nature. There are no big cities or great civilizations nearby. Instead, most people spend their time working in the fields, basking in the sun with a packed lunch and a song, enduring the harsh elements, at home with the family, or harvesting nature's bounties, both cultivated and wild. Travel through pastoral lands and dangerous wilderness is a central theme, as are the little things you pack or keep at home to help you: a worn cloak, some buttermilk scones, or a reed flute to pass the time. Love it. I love the detail in these items too, because every tag that you create, if you put it in the backpack or wherever you put it, it is just what it is. It's always like a one-off creation. So it's not just scones, it's buttermilk scones. And why is it buttermilk scones? Well, because maybe that player character is going to tell you about how their mother's sister, which would be their aunt, used to make whatever. It's just little seeds for people to go thespian off on. Make a little theater out of life. Uncanny creatures are individuals, not races. And this is going to be important. Hearts of Ravensdale, good lord. Ravensdale has only one major species, humankind. I like this for what this game is trying to do. I like this a lot. And I think you will be empowered to be something unique, a creature of Twilight, whatever it may be, in the rules anyway. But it is saying right here, if you are unique, you are rare. An elf in Galarian, not everyday common. Most cities are majority human, but there's elves around. People have seen elves. If you were the equivalent here, call yourself a creature of Twilight or whatever, it would be like, oh man, like there is something adventuring with us, and we don't know what it is or what it wants or anything of the sort. But the world is filled with other strange sapient creatures and terrible monsters. Every dwarf or dragon you might meet is a unique individual with a different nature and their own abilities. No one rule binds them all. This is the biological essentialism that they are steering well clear of. The elves of this world are beings of legend scarcely known to the people who live upon the earth, and so players must venture forth and discover the inhabitants of this land through the fresh eyes of their heroes. A monster's weakness, a creature's favorite food, a spirit's true name, all await for you to reveal. And all of those things could become mechanically relevant with tags or statuses and allow you to bypass challenges. So you're set upon by a monster and for whatever reason, some sort of kind of like fairy folk thing, like, oh, this creature loves a hearty beef stew. And if you know that and you come to them with, a beef stew, maybe they let you go or something like that. Knowledge can be very powerful in a game like this, I presume. Again, I have not played it. I'm just reading. Mysterious magic. The magic of Hearts of Ravensdale is largely unseen, a confluence of forces clashing in a world not easily revealed to mortals. The down-to-earth hedge magic of witches, recluses, and artisans is hard to come by, and though spells and incantations may be uttered, no prescribed outcome is guaranteed. Magic is as fickle as it is hidden and elusive. There is a fabled path to becoming a true thaumaturge, a worker of miracles, but it is lost to time. Perhaps you will find it one day. This is neat because this sense of like true thaumaturgy in the face of, where is it? No prescribed outcome is guaranteed, magic is as fickle. as it is hidden and elusive. So even the people in this setting who can do magic, the ones that are practitioners of the old ways, they're like every day they're just like, I'm just getting it my best shot. Or just rolling the dice to see what happens. Many paths to take. In the stories of Hearts of Ravensdale, there is no single solution or one way out, and the sword is not above all. What the swordsman solves with steel, the baker solves with bread, the lover with a kiss, the wise one with wit, and the prankster with a deft trick. The adventures of your hero are yours to steer in any direction you please, as long as the dice are in your favor too. And they'll be just as challenging and rich outside of battle as they are within. Very good. What is in this book? Okay, we got Chapter 1, Hill and Valley. This is going to be our close by stuff. Chapter 2, Past the Bounds. This is actually, I should call this out. Chapter 1 is for the players and the narrator, because this is going to be like the shared knowledge chapter. This is the stuff that's close by. You can presume your character knows of these things or has the chance to know of these things. Of course, they might just live with their head in the sand, and that's fine. Chapter 2, Past the Bounds, is for the narrator only. Kind of loosely. Because it does have secrets, legendary past. So this might answer some of the big questions of the setting. So like I said, we probably, just by time alone, we'll probably only touch on Chapter 1, but we might intentionally not touch on Chapter 2 in a stream. Or at least I'll tag it very differently, make sure that people know what they're getting into. Chapter 3, Wake of the Old Ways, a series of 7 adventures set in the Dales. Okay, so it's an anthology series. That's great. Which can be played individually as a campaign or as the first act in a mountain-style epic journey. Interesting. That stretches from the Dales to the ends of the earth. Snap. So we didn't look up journeys yet because that was in Volume 2, which we didn't get to on Wednesday. So context missing. More beautiful art. Okay, here it is. Here's the art that I was talking about. This one right here. This is like she's part tree. What is that, dryad? I'll mess up my mythological creatures. Dryad or nymph? Dryad, right? Anyway, got like actual like shelf mushrooms growing on her and everything. But she's got something you could drink there if you dare. Welcome to the Dales. Gaze up to the azure skies and mountain shadows. Look down upon pastures green and barley gold. Taste the crisp promise of summer rains and winter snow. Hear the lulling songs of river, foam, and still waters, the serenity of it all, accentuated by a raven's call. Smell the axe-fallen pine and scythe-cut field, the festival incense and banquet earned. Feel autumn's brisk touch upon your cheek and spring's warming flames stir your heart. Can we just go there now? Please. Can we just go there now? That sounds wonderful. And I know it's like rose-tinted glasses. Every now and then you're like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to do the Laura Ingalls Wilder like frontier living and you're making the bread and you're going out to tend to the animals in the fields and everybody's, communicating and communing in the central little town. And then you're like, yeah, but I also like having, heat and coffee and role-playing games and live streaming and yeah. But this does sound quite nice. Logan showed you the physical set with all 3 books and the pretty dice and trait cards and stuff yesterday. It was so tempting. Yeah. They did very well on that Kickstarter to make it a really good physical release. So it'll be exciting to actually see it roll out. And then I'll get just the core book because I'm a me. It does look so pretty. Yeah. No, animals smell bad. There could be a part of town for you away from the animals, and you could have that part of the town. That could be Kalana's part of the town, and then there could be the part where the animals are, because they make food. You could eat them, and they're tasty sometimes. Trouble yourself not with what lies beyond misty cliffs and crystal streams. Here, in their comforting embrace, you are never lost, never alone. Come and meet the Dalish in their lands, in pastoral hills where cattle graze, in dense forests where none dare tread. I think my light died. Yep, I got to recharge my fill light. Nope. Yep. Sad. More art. Let's unpack this art for a second, because it's fun. First of all, we got our cat on the hearth here with a blanket that is very definitely put there to be the cat's place. This is the cat's place. We got this guy with some maybe magically infused tattoos or something cultural. These guys are looking at them like, who the heck are you? And this kid has no idea where he's just arrived to. So this is like that sense of wonder. Maybe this is the first time he's been to like the big town with the tavern or something, or they're on their adventure already. Oh, we got a little dog down here too. Somebody's playing a fiddle. Looks like a nice cozy place. This chapter provides players and narrators with an overview of the Dales and their people, and with the tools to make heroes who hail from this secluded mountain region. Fair. Rustic people probably smell bad too. Let's be honest, soaps and perfume were a luxury. Yeah. Yep. Probably true. But if everybody smells bad, do you even notice? Maybe that just becomes part of your sensory experience. All right, so we've got familiar places. These must be the subsections. So we'll zip through this. Familiar places, familiar faces, Dalish life, bands and brotherhoods. Each Dale is explored in detail. I think we're going to get to the map here soon, which I almost put on the thumbnail, but it wasn't quite enough of a pop. Making a Dalish hero, cooking and crafting, the magic of the Dales, and we're going to find game elements woven together. So, refresher. These yellow highlights are tags, green highlights are statuses. Tags are not necessarily permanent, but they are just static. They're either on or off. They're in a binary state as far as if they apply. Statuses have a gradient, so status can be 1 through 6. And if it's a 5, you're basically severely impaired by whatever that status is. If it's a 6, it either kills you or permanently changes you. So these are the levers by which you're trying to overcome challenges in I forget what it's called. They're simple, quick, and detailed resolution outcomes. That's kind of the game of rolling the dice trying to overcome something. These can be an item your hero can obtain, a skill they can possess, or a feature that the narrator can add to a scene through challenges and consequences. Sometimes multiple tags are presented together as a theme to be used as a hero's theme or a story theme. That's just a bundle of tags. There's going to be theme kits that we can use, action suggestions, and they also have the entire action grimoire that just lists all the different ideas to get your head aligned with how this game operates. That's a supplemental release they did. Challenges, journeys, and vignettes of the Dale are presented in Chapter 2, which we're probably going to avoid. Okay, familiar places. Home and hearth, dimly lit and rich in all manner of scents. A Dalish home is where stories begin and unfold. The carving of a new bow, the slow cooking of a stew, a hushed conversation where ominous tidings are shared, urgent treatment for someone injured in the field, or a private ritual at the home altar. Entire adventures can take place in one's own home and garden about the simple yet crucial things. That's pretty cool. Doesn't hurt to have that as an option. Some people would say, why would I ever want to do that? I want a heroic fantasy game. And then I would say, why did you buy this book? Did it not communicate clearly enough what it was? But this is neat, you know. I would be really interested to see. And I think Pepper said the other day that her campaign is like the really low stakes one. Because there's like the 4 campaign styles that you can run. I think it'd be fun to see what this looks like. You're gamifying slice of life, basically, which is right up my alley. So I dig it. Built to embrace. To the Dalish, one's home is their safest sanctuary from the elements, from mishaps, from animals, and from the community, which can often be overbearing. It is a place of work, care, and leisure, where one can be oneself without interference. Not a place of privacy, however, as one's own family and cohabitants are always around. Most homes can house families of 7 and more. Dalish homes vary in form across the Dales, but share several common architectural precepts, notably a stone cellar, raised wooden floors built around a central hearth, walls of logs and rough planks, and a high ceiling. Grass mats, reeds, or furs cover the flooring for comfort and insulation. Shuttered windows, be they with or without wooden panels, provide light and allow for decoration. Folding screens and hanging curtains subdivide the space, and reed mats or tapestries on the walls add colors. I am a writer, and I am not good at details. I ain't that type of writer. So the fact that this is basically, in the context of this book at large, this is a throwaway paragraph. It's like, yeah, this is what houses are like. Everybody knows what houses are like, right? And I'm just like, no, let me take notes. I need to describe the planks and the woven floor mats and stuff. I never do this stuff, and I wish I was better at it. So this is great. Good stuff. Old furnishing. Furnishings are typically practical, consisting of simple but sturdy chairs, tables, log beds, hidden cupboards, and storage chests. Most have been in the family for generations. Items and tools that aren't in use are hung in the rafters to await their season, along with dried herbs and smoked meats. Love it. Bringing in the seasonal context of how these spaces are filled as well. The roof. The Dalish home's sharply gabled roof helps reduce stress from snow and rain and is able to withstand sustained mountain winds. Although predominantly thatch, roofs can feature bark shingles or tiles. It is not uncommon to see children climb the roof, especially on starry nights. That's cute. I like that. I want to run a rooftop starry night scene. Let's talk about this for a second, because we've got snow and rain and sustained mountain winds and everything like that. There's a lot to this that is coded in the classical Western fantasy genre. And that doesn't mean that there aren't other styles of fantasy out there. I'm curious to see. Clearly, they've got a trilogy of books in this on the way. But I know Son of Oak. Go to their website. They have books and books and books and books and books galore, especially for City of Mist. That's just the expansions. They just go and go and go. I'm curious if they would take a stab at another series of books, or even just a one-off, that tried to bring the concept of rustic fantasy, which would need considerable tweaking, and place it in a different cultural context. That might be something that they develop in time. And they did this in a way with Metro Otherscape, which is their cyberpunk game that uses the same engine. They started off with Metro Tokyo, and then they made Metro Otherscape Cairo to introduce different elements and then see what came of it. So, aren't we all? This is the channel for rooftop starry scene type people. This is your home. If you are just finding us now, like, subscribe, join the Patreon. These are your people. These are your people. And we also play crunchy games and do all sorts of stuff. Talk about sci-fi a lot. All right. Around the house, larger storerooms and outer buildings such as barns and workshops buttress the main structure. Well-tended yards feature vegetable and herb gardens, as well as other amenities such as an outhouse and sometimes a steam bath. Wooden fences or stone walls surrounding the property keep animals in and reduce snowdrifts during winter. Oh, is that a thing they're doing? They're doing iris setting books? I did see something about that maybe in an email that I was rapidly scrolling through. Hey, look at that. Okay. Well, they're rolling then. So perfect, yeah. So they are kind of still staying in that northwestern European area, but hopefully they branch out. I mean, they can't hurt, right? I mean, unless it's a commercial failure, but you hope it's not. Hiding secrets. Every home hides its own secrets. A locked chest in the root cellar, an unspoken tragedy in the family, a shrine to the winds in the back, or a helpful hob that only the homemaker can see. Nosiness and gossip are discouraged, but of course prevail. Sending me back to the Midwest with that one. So Dalish people mind who they bring into their home, what is seen from where they host their guests, and who they leave unattended. Okay. Yeah, I won't go there. I'm going to leave it. My experiences are my own. Look at that pig. That guy is a chonker. He's enormous. It's a different company. Are they doing materials for this engine, for this rule set, or is it entirely different? Either way. You're pulling it out of me. Okay, my experience of being in the Midwest, in a particular region of the Midwest, you hear about Midwest nice or Minnesota nice. It's like this cultural concept. Everybody's so nice, and they are to your face. And you get them apart from the person that they're talking about, and oh man, do the rumors and backtalk fly. Oh my God. Oh, wow. Communities, churches, restaurants, you name it. That was my experience out there. All right. So we got some scene ideas at and around the home, everyday dinner, argument among the home dwellers. This is cool, right? Like, this is like, hey, do you need just a list of like things to consider as a GM or as a player? I'm going to talk about that for a second. Items found in every Dalish home. This is so great because you're setting the baseline of knowledge. I would have loved if we had had a supplementary material of this sort when we started New Dawn, because it is hard to know if everybody's on the same page until you see that we're not. And then you're like, oh, you pictured the houses looked like this and they had stoves and ovens and maybe somebody else didn't. And this is really cool baseline setting. Still for Legend. It's called Beyond the Woods. All right, cool. Yeah, that's cool that people are already publishing. I don't know the story behind what kind of license Son of Oaks used to allow that, but that's neat. That is neat. Yeah, the business side of RPGs is tricky. All right. Shall we read this? I don't want to read everything. I think, yeah, I want to read that, but I do also want to not just read you guys the whole book. Scenes in the village. Yeah, another nice list. Atmosphere in the village. Oh, look at this with statuses. Atmosphere in the village. Bad blood with each other. Festive mood. A stir with gossip. Industrious. Peaceful. Sullen. Suspicious. Welcoming. These are all statuses that you can put out there. Give them a value, and then you can let the players engage with those. And they can actually alter the number level of the status. So you could have a stir with gossip too, and then you could have a character who wants to like ramp up the gossip in town for some reason because they want to leverage that status later for something else they want to try and do. So they could take some actions to try and increase the gossip status. Or you could have somebody who's like, let's bring it down. Let's take it down a notch, and they're bringing the gossip levels down. And then scenes across the dale. Great. This does make me a little sad that these are 1.5 spaced and these are 1 spaced. But I'm nitpicky like that. It's the editor in me. Hamlet and Dale. The mountainous region of the Dales is divided into many individual valleys, open and fertile lands surrounded by foothills and rugged peaks. Though the Dales are sparsely populated, their seclusion from each other fosters a local community centered around the largest cluster of homes, a village. Bustling with activity or sullen and shuttered, these hamlets are the stage for Dalish life, toil, and social affairs. Huddled together, homes and farmsteads can be found across each dale, but often they are clustered together into one or several villages of varying sizes, from 3 to 30 houses. While some prefer the relative solitude of the countryside, all but the most misanthropic recluses find practical use for village life, and others revel in its camaraderie and social intrigue. The folk hearth. The village's heart is its longhouse, a communal building used regularly for gatherings, work, and song, and for housing guests and those in need. We're going to go back to that. It is often built atop the highest spot or at the most central point in the village, close to the village granary and stores, and fortified against the elements. It serves as the village's sanctuary during harsh winters and major storms. This is absolutely beautiful to me. And it sets the tone for the game at large, for this setting at large, that like this is a game where people have come together and they have already put in functional social netting to catch people. The fact that this will house guests or those in need, it's like we're not getting a huge sense at this time of like bandits roamed through the countryside and pillaged all the farmhouses and we had to run into town for safety. But if that happened, this exists in, as they describe it here, most Dalish villages have this. So I think that's really neat. That's a really neat assumption to start with as you're playing in these villages. From the folk hearth, the main roads head out through the village to the fields. Homes and fenced yards line their length, where the settlement's oldest families live. From here, paths stretch out like tree roots, sometimes confoundingly so. Workshops of less agreeable sounds or smells, such as tanners and blacksmiths, are located on the village's outer roads, where homes become sparser, diffusing into fields or forest. Farm, field, and orchard. Farmsteads and crofts dot the expanse of a dale, often hours or even a day's walking distance from the village. Fields and grazing pastures make up most of each dale's cultivated area. These can vary wildly, depending on the crops and herds common in the dale. Communal buildings shared by neighboring families can be found between the fields. Granaries, barns, cider houses, tool sheds, and more. Scattered around the valley, one may also find a hunting lodge, logging camp, milling house, quarry, or mine. Very good. We have our places in a typical dale. Let's look at this art piece. Let's see if we have anything fun to say here. This dude's drying a plate, but he's also sitting at the table with everyone else. Or he's polishing it because he's about to serve the bread. Nice big fish. Gigantic loaf of... Oh, I was going to say that was bread. I think that's a ham hock or something. Cozy. This dude's passed out. Either too much to drink or he's too tired. All right. Again, we're going to skip these. Go buy the book if you want it, I guess. The land around, beyond the cultivated land, each dale is rich with wild natural beauty and peril. Swaths of woodlands and wetlands, meadows and grasslands, heather-covered knolls and rocky hills, gurgling brooks and shimmering ponds, and the great boundless sky, rimmed only by the peaks of the dale's edge. All of these invite the Dalish folk to forage, explore, and search for their hidden marvels. But if one strays too far, one risks overstepping the bounds of the known natural world, coming in contact with the capital U unseen. The dales below, timeless. The dales were scoured out by some great power. Ooh, seaside bar. Okay. Forming an intricate network of lakes, valleys, and highlands, communities arose in the hilly lowlands and gentle plateaus between for which each dale is named. Decades of farming, grazing, and planting have forever altered the harsh landscape. This feels like this should say centuries to me, but that's okay. Decades seems too recent. Natural wonders are carefully harvested or are enshrined to honor the old ways. Despite this, much of the dales below remain wild and unexplored. So let's read this sidebar. Who made the world? This is our creation myth here. The Dalish have different notions about the creation of the world, but any Dales person pressed sufficiently will admit that they don't truly know. Some Dalish believe mighty creatures of twilight shaped the earth long before the Old Kingdom. Others look upon their land and see the handiwork of the Lady of the Dales, their sacred yet distant matron. Others yet spin a tale that the world is a tree and the mountain ranges its roots. Mostly, this question is rarely contemplated, far less attractive than what's for dinner. So they're in a state where they're not asking necessarily the big questions because they have enough to do to survive day by day. They're cutting their firewood, which is a process that takes all of your fall season to stack up enough to get through. So very cool. Grandeur and caution. When the Dalish look upon the beauty of the wilds around them, they see both miracle and danger. On the one hand, they live off the land, even its wilder parts, and revel in its gifts. Living most of their lives outdoors, the Dalish hike hills and mountain slopes and climb down into glens. They swim, bathe, and fish in rivers, ponds, and wetlands, and they hunt, forage, and unwind in the woodlands and meadows. They know their land well, and for that reason they treat it with the utmost respect, knowing full well its beauty can turn deadly in an instant. Poisonous flora, aggressive animals, slippery ledges, and entangling underwater plants may all claim the life of the unwary roamer. And always, the elements, storms, mudslides, floods, and thick fog can catch up to you out in the land. But most of all, the Dalish fear the unseen inhabitants of the land, vile creatures of twilight, who can use their cunning to bewitch a person or steal their soul. We've got the 5 tallest mountains here. That's good stuff. I do want to get to the map. I think the map must be coming soon. That's a big boy. That's a big froggo boy. Just gorgeous. Look at the colors here. I don't necessarily pay attention to colors very much, but I have been paying attention more recently because I've been sending sunset pictures to everybody. But I just love this gradient from the blues and the darks and the grays into the golden and then into the green and back to the gold. And yeah, it's just beautiful. Gonna be fun to flip through these books in person. Scenes in the Dalish Wild. This is great. They keep this sidebar running, so they're easy at hand. You can just flip through and just grab scene ideas. Love it. The Dales above. Above hill and valley, the Dales rise into bright skies and clouded splendors. To the Dalish, this liminal world remains distant yet ingrained in their hearts. Its borders are well recognized, green pastures transitioning to tree-lined canopies and shaded ravines. Over time, locals built seasonal lodges and mountain barns, taking refuge from the intemperate weather. Hunting trails and mining roads remain sparse, but welcome the odd visitor. Some have been preserved through generations. Beyond these, the bleak lands of crooked woods and tundra await. A silent domain disturbed only by pika calls and a strange hermit's horn blows. Few venture higher, where only perpetual snows and frozen rocks reside. The land in the dales changes around its inhabitants in a never-ending cycle, and they adapt to its rhythms. In the winter, all is covered in silent snow and crystalline icicles, and the earth is hardened with frost. Snowshoes are needed to travel comfortably. In spring, streams and rivers overflow with snowmelt, and the roads turn muddy and slippery. In summer, the valleys are green and lush, the barley turns yellow and grows heavy, the days are sweltering hot, and the nights are mild and breezy. In the autumn, the trees wear colors of ruby, amber, and rust, and flurries of fallen leaves blow unexpectedly in the frequent rains. The wilds at the edge of every dale hide wondrous little corners of natural beauty, a whirlpool of cool fresh water that carved strange faces in the stone, or a forest meadow with an outcrop of rock overlooking the valley. A dales person will often keep such a place to themselves or share it only with someone close. Often a simple cairn or shrine of the old ways is built there to express reverence or seek communion. Cautious Dales people do not linger long, however, knowing that creatures of twilight favor these beautiful places and at times even dwell there. Many a strange meeting occurs at such natural hidden gems. Right on, Pepper. Get those errands going. This is actually a great stream to just listen to, I think, probably. I like this. So this paragraph here about these enchanted spots, it's like it's giving me that idea of like a bunch of kids, dare each other to go out to the one little pool, the glacier-fed pool that goes around the rock face, and then they dare each other for who can stay out there the longest, and whoever stays out there the longest wins, and then something happens, because of course it does. The ruins of old Gwyrdalin. Further deepening the mystique of the Dales are the ruins of old Gwyrdalin strewn about, looming out of the fog or through the foliage when least expected. These stone buildings, hundreds of years old and weather-worn, have nevertheless been relatively preserved, perhaps thanks to the miraculous craft of the ancients. It is not uncommon to run into a toppled-over watchtower from the days of the war, or a cobbled courtyard in the heart of an overgrown grove. Sensible Dales people leave these places alone for fear of bandits, sorcerers, and strange creatures. Hey, D Priest, how you doing? Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it. This is I on Wednesday when they were asking, they're like, "Hey, you should look at this book." I was like, "I can't, man. I can't. It's too thick." And then as time went on, I was like, "I think I could do it on Sunday morning. I think I've recharged enough." Yeah, the whole book is a vibe for sure. I swear they could have called Legend in the Mist Cozy Vibes the Game. Yeah, they probably could have. Yeah, good times. This here is the first mention, unless I've missed it elsewhere, of a war. We have seen mention of the Old Kingdom. We do know that there's ruins all over the place, and these people don't necessarily know their own history. But I don't think we've seen an explicit mention of a capital W war yet. And that might be something we run into here in a little bit, or it might be something that's relegated to Chapter 2, which will, again, we will not be doing live on stream. So interesting, though. If you want to use the history of this war as an element in your game, that is there for you. We're all the way up to page 33, guys. I don't know how. I don't understand how they made this much content. Do you know what I mean? Like, these pages are full of text. I understand art is one of the most expensive pieces of a published work. I get that, but like, words aren't cheap either. You got to pay these people. And I know that the creative team themselves is likely concentrated at the top. In fact, they might do all their writing in-house. So, the various dales are crisscrossed and interconnected by dirt roads and sturdy bridges, which ease travel but remain subject to fitful weather conditions. Once or twice a year, the people of a dale will repair its main roads. Other smaller roads are left for each farm to repair. Bummer. Travel between dales is also possible by mountain passes and trails, allowing access through or above the perilous ridges, but this makes for a much more demanding journey. 4 cobbled high roads remain intact from the days of the Old Kingdom. That's cool. I like that visual. The first and longest from Underbow to Wood End along the Shiverwash River. The second from Wood End to Barleytown through Soddenmoor, where the ancient road is now sunken in places. The third from Barleytown to Fairpoint, completing a loop around most of the dales. And the last cutting across from the peak. Yeah, we did it. Okay. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear me. I see things happening live again. Are we back? I was just saying about how this game broke me, and then it killed my internet. Let's do this. Are we back? Question mark. Bam. And then I'll just look for it to pop up and see. We look like we're back. To me, I'm back. Awesome. The quick pivot to the backup internet. You gotta love it. So I don't know where exactly I got cut off. I was just gonna go into a rant about how this game is breaking me because they have done the work of like plotting out where the roads go, and it's like actually your players can read this and they can learn where the roads go and they can have shared knowledge and approach the world from a shared world building space. I mean, it's great. Short story is it's great. And I'm really enjoying this. And I really did not think I would. Because I'm stubborn. I'm a little stubborn. That is a trait. That is a London trait, if you're not aware. Cool. All right, I might have to refresh this, though. Did this go away? Because Min's chat showed up there, but not here. Let me do this button, and this button. Let's do this. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Very good. Okay. Moving on. The waters of the Dales. The Dales are rich with rainfall, sometimes dangerously so. Rainwater pools in waterlogged wetlands, soggy swamps and glistening lakes, and flows through the land in gurgling brooks, meandering rivers, or gushing waterfalls. Oversaturation always poses a danger. In the winter, avalanches and freezing rain. In the spring, mudslides. In the summer and fall, floods. Among the Dale's waterways and bodies of water, these are the most prominent. I like this paragraph here because, and it doesn't quite say it so explicitly, but water is the lifeblood of communities. It's why villages form in valleys where the rivers cut through, because the waters nourish the nearby crops. They keep the soils rich. You know, if you look at the Nile, you know, that's where there's the strip of like vegetation and everything. So I feel like it would be very reasonable for there to be almost a religious sort of reverence for water in this setting, that it is enabling them to live. It's the lifeblood of the land itself, kind of. So that's cool, but it's also dangerous, as they say here, that it can be powerful and unwieldy, and that's where it kind of gets that sort of mythical god state level of veneration. So I like it. The Shiverwash River is a wide and meandering river originating in the northern plains of Stormhelm and in the Witchwood, running along the Dalish foothills where it is continually fed by many mountain streams until eventually opening into a trackless, marshy delta. The Milken Rush, often simply called the Rush, is a series of foaming rapids and half-frozen waterfalls that carved the deep gorge that now separates the Cragan Highlands from the Dales. Originating from a Highlands river hitting upon the hard rock of the Milken Crest, it is said to run in two opposite directions, although these are in fact two separate rivers descending from opposite sides of the mountain. That's interesting. In the north, the Rush provides much-needed irrigation to the fields of Barleytown before eventually draining into the Withermere Lake of the Dolmen Knolls. In the south, it passes through Cedar Gate, slowing down and becoming fordable near Lastford. So it is not crossable everywhere. There are specific crossings, which makes for pressure points and tension points in narrative. You know, when the hobbits have to rush to try and get across whichever river that was to get to Bree, or out of Bree, I don't know, whatever. Buckleberry Ferry. This is an important like choke point in a lot of stories. There's a flight across the river in The Eye of the World, First Wheel of Time book. And this is also the sort of place where you would expect bandits and ne'er-do-wells to set up to ambush people because they know that they're coming through that way. So, very interesting. It then flows into the upper and lower Alden-Weald Lakes, separated by the Badger Burrow Strait and Beaver Waterfall by Woodend, and drains into the Shiver Wash Mountains. Other large bodies of water in the Dales include the Five Fair Sisters in Upper Heartland, Lake Fox, and Lake Hare. This is Min's Lake right here. Min, you get your own lake. And Lake Hare in Heartland, and Loch Friedel, named so since antiquity, between Ashstone Pasture and the Bounds, the largest body of water in the Dales. Let's see what this sidebar is all about. Why so cold? Well, it's because it's in the north and it's high elevation. That's the answer there, probably. Oh, but there's a Winter King story here. The monstrous Winter King halted his army's advance on the eastern banks of the Shiver Wash, and suddenly turned back just short of fording the river and invading the Dales, never to be seen again. And then he cursed the river's water to remain forever icy, reminding all of his promise to return. So there's always time and space and place for legends within these communities, but also there's this sense that, like, if this legend is circulated, you don't have a bunch of people in the town going like, actually the water temperature is due to, so there aren't like rampant scientifically accurate people running around towns like poo-pooing these legends, even if they know on some level that that's probably not a literal true story. It's the spirit of these tales that is how they communicate and they share, a sense of culture and belonging with one another and a shared history. So anyway, lots of good little sidebar stuff here. They're secluded cultures for a reason. Bridges, ferries, fords, yes. All other ways into the Dales involve traveling across mountainous terrain, crossing treacherous or gushing water, or risking hostile lands where few can survive. Here we go. We've gotten to the map. All right. So this is just, listing every place out, and then we should get there. Yes, here we go. All right. So where is here? Ravenholm. Ravenholm, this tiny little spot in the middle, is kind of like I guess you might call it like the default starting town. So it's completely isolated by mountains all the way around. You have to come out to the west to even get to a road. And then these are names that we've been hearing: Soddenmoor, Woodend, South Crossing. I think that comic in the beginning, the little girl was asking about, she must have been looking out this way. Well, he kind of name dropped all of these places in that comic. And then here's the Shiver Wash. Okay, so the Shiver Wash, the Big Daddy River, is our effective eastern border. So most of everything that's going on is happening west of the Shiver Wash. This is cool. I should maybe stop scrolling around this like a madman and show you the whole thing for what it's worth. It doesn't show up that great on stream, but that is a cozy looking little map. And presumably people in these towns have access to, or somebody has access to, a map like this. But as we saw from Uncle Tyden in the comic, he's like, he doesn't really know where things are. So it's just probably just not relevant. Like, they're like, what? You don't need a map if you're going to stay home. So very beautiful representation, though. Have we seen anything about Stormhelm yet? I know we've kind of skipped over a little bit, but that looks like a big place. I wonder if that's the old what they call it, the old kingdom kind of stuff. And then you got a bridge that crosses to the north. Yeah, this is cool. I like knowing spatially where to place myself, and I mentioned that in the other stream too. It was actually the Pumpkin Spice stream, where they were like, you don't need to lay out the whole cafe. You don't need to know where the espresso machine is. You don't need to know where the restrooms are. And I was like, I do, though. I do. I want to visualize myself in the space and understand that if you're over there, it's taking me 4 steps to cross over there, because that affects how I'm describing and narrating how I move in the space. So absolutely not necessary, but I appreciate maps like this for that reason. So onward. At the edge of the Dales, most Dales people do not concern themselves with faraway lands, first and foremost because faraway lands rarely concern themselves with the Dales. While inhabitants of the Dales bordering another region know a thing or two about their neighbors, they always treat such places with suspicion and fear and try their best to avoid them. Few strangers ever cross into the Dales from outside, and fewer yet Dalish venture out. The Aldenweald. A thick and verdant forest stretches beyond the southwestern edge of the dales, and that was on the very bottom of the map that we just saw, giving Wood End its name, which is on the other side of the river, right? Yes, or a lake, rather. So Wood End is on the north side, separate from the Aldenweald. Let's see what happens in the Aldenweald. Around its outskirts, where the sunlight filters playfully through the emerald canopy, Wood End hunters and loggers work their trades. Some brave deeper to find shadowy ponds or ruins of the old kingdom. Here and there, one may come across a lone cabin where old ways herbalists or others odd recluses dwell, availing themselves of the forest lushness and variety. And then they give you some tag examples. Rich in potent herbs, rich in game. So those are kind of, the tag there is kind of a plot hook as well. Because you could say, hey, we want to go out and harvest herbs, and this is a place where we know we're going to have a good time doing that. So, but those who visit the Aldenweald must remain ever vigilant, for it is also home to all manner of curious creatures with a capital C, some amusing or pesky, others cunning, sorcerous, or monstrous, who may trick foolish dalespeople to serve their mysterious ends. I intuit here there's using creatures as shorthand for creatures of Twilight, which is the full name of like the stuff that we don't understand, don't know, are afraid of. The wise never venture too far into the Aldenweald, into the places where the light diminishes and the trees sigh unnervingly. Those who trespass its deep, ever-shifting territories return cursed, or never at all. Shiverwash marshes, and those were to the southeast from the image we saw. From the lowlands of the bounds, a great plain of snaking fens, stagnant canals, and sickly reed beds stretches southeast as far as the eye can see. The eerie shapes of gnarled, dead trees protrude out of oily water thick with seaweed, and in the distance a blackened, sunken ruin rises like an accusatory finger curled in pain. Dang. Yikes. That's a vibe. None but the most gifted travelers can cross this land where a dry, solid patch of land is scarcely found, as a tag, story tag, and where, failure example, so they did mention in the beginning of this book that strewn throughout they were going to start to drop in little examples of consequences you can deliver on failed rolls. So here we have boats crack, leak, and rot unnaturally fast. So if you are traveling in a craft through these fens, these bogs, it will basically eat your boat alive as you go. Even the pragmatic Dalish fear the Shiverwash marshes and avoid them completely. Strangers passing through South Crossing, who have survived the harrowing journey, bring back unsettling tales of flesh-eating creatures, yuck, of dead things lumbering in the mists, and of the marsh's insidious, incessant advance. I love the sense of that. Like, if you're in there, you feel an oppressive force pushing on you. The Cragen Highlands and the seas beyond, west of the Milken Crest along the Rush, the broken mountain ranges and valleys of the Dales rise into a continuous and windswept highland, rocky, barren, and riddled with deep ravines, and beyond it, the great sea. To hear the tales, it was once an empty land, but monstrous creatures that fled from the war of thaumaturges, there we go, there's a lore drop. So that war we were talking about was a war of magic. Or a war of nations that employed specifically powerful thaumaturges to blow each other up. So, yeah, a little context there. Those creatures were stopped here by the sea and clawed their lairs into the stony cliffs. Then came the fearless Salt Lords, seafaring invaders who promptly settled the highlands' craggy plateaus, becoming nomadic warriors, hunters, and herders. Interesting. So this is all off the map, basically. Let's go back to the map one second. And apologies for the scrolling. Yeah, so we have Melkrest, Cragen Highlands here, and this is the Melken Rush, I presume. This is the one that has all the half-frozen waterfalls and the rapids that make it kind of look white and turning like milk. And then further off to the west, we reach the sea. And so this area outside of the boundary to our left bounding region of the map, we've got creatures that fled the war that happened here and set up their lairs in stony caverns and such. And we also have an invading force that came from, presumably, I guess they could have come from any direction, but they beached there on the shores to our west. and are basically just roaming around raiding. So I don't know if that's meant to be kind of a Viking-ish analog, but it works. The Salt Lords. For most Dalish, the Cragan Highlands are distant peaks rarely thought of. Even in Barleytown and Milkrest, the sheer cliffs along the Rush prove impractical for the Cragan to invade in force. Oh, they are on the map. Hold on. I was mistaken. We'll go back to the map in a second. I'll clear that up. Yet the Highlands continually cast their shadow upon Lastford and Cedargate along the river fords, threatening their peace. No mere bandits, the Cragan possess an intricate culture and history, and their druids and soothsayers command sea, wind, and spirit. These hardened seafolk now test the Dale's western borders, their raiding parties clashing with the Woodwards with increasing frequency. Let's go back to the map. So these highlands here are on the map. It's these cliffs that they were referring to. And apologies if my cursor's not super clear on the screen. Very interesting. Cool. Milkrest does not seem like a great place to be, if I'm honest with you. This place seems like it is too close to some bullshit. If I'm being completely honest. The Northern Wastelands. This part's off the map. North of the Dolmen Knolls rests an unspoiled plateau of sweet grass and lichen-colored rock. So we're in our tundra here. Ira's Tier. That is a proper noun. We got a story there. Whoever Ira was. From here, the lands descend through towering natural arches known as Winter's Gate. Beyond these bowing giants lie the Northern Wastelands, an unending expanse of tundric permafrost, frozen plains, and snow. So desolate and remote is this land that even most creatures of twilight shun it. Oof. Only cruel harpies and blowing snow devils are fabled to live here. Little of substance, if anything, is known of this howling realm, except a rare, bleak account from the bone tenders who travel close to check their farthest outlying protective circles. Bone tenders. Seems druidic. The Wanderlands. East of the Dales, on the eastern banks of the river Shiverwash, lies the rugged wilderness of the Wanderlands, a vast region that extends north to the territories of Stormhelm, south to the Shiverwash marshes, and far east beyond tale or measure. Its nearest parts, seen best from the promontory of Fairpoint, are for the most part desolate moorish hills. In this land dwell the lawless and the nameless, the forsaken descendants of old Gwyrdalin. That must be Gwyrdalin on the map, way up there to the north. Maybe. I don't know. Gathered in small settlements few and far between, or roaming the land in search of fortune or fresh victims. For all its hidden treasures, it is a harsh land, ravaged by banditry, nefarious dark arts, and monstrosities that not even the boldest of warriors could face. Most Dalish dismiss stories about the Wanderlands as fanciful anecdotes and cautionary tales. Few brave its stony expanse, enticed by stories of exotic nomads and stranger treasures. Yet fewer still return, blessed with miraculous relics of the Old Kingdom to leave to their descendants as heirlooms, or limp back in shame empty-handed. Outsiders who arrive in the Dales from the Wanderlands are not soon trusted, but after years may be accepted as adoptive Dales people known as Farkin. Interesting. I like that. That would be a fun place to start with a character concept, is to be considered a Farkin. Although we do know outsiders who arrive in the Dales are exceedingly rare. They are more common than people who leave the Dales. So there's a gravitational force there in the middle. Keeps people in. Okay, the Witchwood. The northernmost and most remote of the Dales' upper heartland ends where the brooding firs, spruces, and hemlocks of the Witchwood begin, heavy with snow more oft than not. This shadowed forest, where even the noontime sun glows as pale as gloaming, if it is seen at all, has long been a looming threat over the inhabitants of the northern Dales. Under its dark branches dwell shape-shifting terrors that beckon Dales people within, ensnare them, and consume them alive. Or worse, devour their souls. Nice. With each passing year, these creatures of twilight become bolder, venturing out of the forest at night to slaughter and feed on the unwary. That's a problem and a half. I was just thinking to myself, like, oh yeah, you go into these forests and the creatures can eat your soul. And then you're like, I see why the Dales people are just like, no, we just chill. Like, we just go and we hang out in the longhouse or the I forget what they called it. But no, the creatures are coming out of the woods. They're coming for you. Unlike anywhere else in the Dales, Upheartlanders lock and bar their doors at night. Among them, the protective charms and rituals of the old ways are highly sought after. Yeah, they would be. They would be. While the Dalish may risk the sun-kissed Aldenweed, which is the southern forest, recall, none venture beyond the Witchwood's evergreen borders. Whatever lurks within its violent heart lets its displeasure be known as, consequence tag, bent trees scratch and burrs bite, marring body and soul. If the trees and the burrs are marring your soul, that is a place that you need to not go. That is not the place for you to be. Oh, man. Okay. Let me fix this because this is still not updating. So I'm going to close that and then I'm going to reopen it. Maybe my chat is just broken. Ah, there we go. Finally updated. Okay, hold on. Give me a second. I got to put this in its proper place. Okay. Now I've got to generate a new URL. Bear with me. I'll be back in 1 second. Zip over here. Put that there. Copy, paste. Okay. Turn off studio mode. And now I can once more... There. Now we're back. Yeah, this is where the nope comes in. Yeah. Again, if a tree scratch... You're going through the forest, the tree scratches you, and you're worried about your soul... You're in the wrong place. You're just in the wrong place. Yeah, no, it's fine that you guys have been quiet. It's just I saw the chat from Min showed up on my stream elements, but it wasn't populating in my live chat, so I couldn't highlight anything. And I was like, oh, there's nothing to highlight, so no worries. But as soon as there was, I was like, all right, let's fix this. Let's fix it. And it is fixed. Only the desperate and the treacherous Hexen, capitalized and in bold, it seems like maybe a coven of some sort, who consort with the they consort with the twilight? Yikes. They reside in this tangle of cheerless shadow, drawing on its repellent energies, yet even they are not immune to the Witchwood's maddening darkness as a tag. Story tag, maddening darkness. Not friendly. There is an element here, and this book has done a very good job of convincing me that we do not want to be messing with creatures of twilight. Period, point blank. Although I do feel like in the Tinderbox demo, when they were first launching this game, there were some elements where they were like, maybe not all creatures of twilight are bad. Maybe like you can work with them or something like that. But I say all of that to say that this entity, whatever it is, this Hexen group who consorts with the twilight, my immediate reaction from what we've read so far was being like, whoa, like don't be working with them. What are you thinking? But there's certainly more to it than just that. And I think the point I want to call out is that the book has done a good job of setting that tone to get me as the reader to have the reaction they want me to have. So I appreciate that. Yes, thank you, Tortuga. If y'all can do it, feel free to like the video. Feel free. You can always go back and do comments later too. That's always fun. Stormhelm, the last city, far to the northeast of the Dales, rising from the Wanderland's northern reach, lies a man-made marvel few Dalish can imagine. Okay, so it's not Gwyrdalin. It is Gwyrdalin. I should just finish reading sentences before I postulate. Okay, so we have Stormhelm, a city, the last that still stands, the sole inhabited remnant of the old kingdom of Gwyrdalin. It survived the War of the Thaumaturges thanks to an event that still mars its honor centuries later. Uh-oh, that is how you... Do you want Shadar Logoth? This is how you get Shadar Logoth. If you guys know Wheel of Time. I think they walled themselves off from wars all around them, and then they just kind of consumed themselves with their own evil impulses, and it turned into a bad place to go in the Wheel of Time. So, Stormhelm seems like it has suffered a similar fate. The tales say the city was taken by the armies of the Winter King and was occupied by the Twilight for decades until its sudden retreat at the end of the war. Okay. So they were taken over and occupied by some other undesirable force, and that kind of changed who they are. Today, still scarred by its past wars and conspiracies. Yep. Yes, that is exactly Shadar Logoth. Forget what its original name was. Stormhelm, nevertheless, dominates the lands around. Knights and landed nobles pay homage to the Lady Margrave, the city's cunning and ruthless military leader. Dang. While it is the last standing Gwyrdalin city, it has no true claim for authority over the remote dales, nor the power to bring law to the ravaged Wanderlands. Its grandeurs baffle the prudent and grounding Dalish, as do its class rivalries and political infighting, but its culture fascinates those who seek refinement or crave knowledge of written histories, such as those recorded by its Society of Scribes. Merchants from its Charter of Changers vie for business in the Dales, one of the few groups of regular outsiders. So there are our peddlers and our merchants bringing in news from the wider world, kind of. But even Stormhelm, even Stormhelm is one city unto itself. And so I'm fascinated here by the fact that Lady Margrave is considered a ruthless military leader, because I'm like, how are you justifying holding a military budget at all in this place? Where are they getting the food and all the funds for that when there's nobody for them to fight necessarily? So that's interesting. They're probably a little bit towards the martial law aspect of things, where the military bleeds into the whatever you might call a police force. However, still, even with all that said, this is the place you can go for culture, and probably, I would assume, art, theater, that kind of thing. So seems like a fascinating, multifaceted city. And there is a picture of not Stormhelm. That's too small. Too small to be Stormhelm. Actually, check out this boat here. The scale. This tower is actually pretty massive compared to the size of this boat. It's a gorgeous picture, though. I could just sit and look at this for a while. Lovely. All right. We're going to get some info on Gwyrdalin now, the Old Kingdom. Only legends and ruins now remain of the great kingdom of Old Gwyrdalin, to whose throne the Dales once swore fealty. As the tale goes, its people were magicians who wrought with their enlightened craft a life of harmony, wisdom, and delight. I don't know about that. Thaumaturgy, as rare as it is in the setting we've seen so far, this to me sounds like some wishful revisionist history. Unless they were so on top of it that the magicians that they had, it wasn't even worth capitalizing or calling out as thaumaturgy. I think this is some propaganda right here. Just saying. Nice try, Gwyrdalin. Its golden age of beauty and enchantment came to a most disastrous end when their luminaries, the great thaumaturges, here they are, clashed in a terrible war with the creatures of Twilight, whom they trusted as their advisors. That is interesting. Leading to a cataclysm that decimated the Gwyrdalin people and devastated the land, the War of the Thaumaturges. So, it was not a war of thaumaturges versus thaumaturges, we are discovering. This was a war of thaumaturges versus creatures of Twilight that people were probably getting a little too comfortable with, and the creatures of Twilight are not beholden to man. And finally, something snapped. Something broke down there. Any Dales person old enough and interested enough in the fabled past would know this abridged tale, but there are few in the Dales who know more. Scribes, if they have access to Stormhelm records, may read the histories, although these may be skewed by the politics of the city. Practitioners of the old ways, if they received the ancient lore from a teacher or through visions, may recount a few more specific tales, such as the one about the end of the war and the chilling of the Shiverwash by Old Winterbane, which we did establish was kind of maybe legend lore, but here it implies maybe there actually is something to that, and maybe that river is cursed. Interesting. Wanderland's grave robbers, monster hunters, and fortune seekers may bring back a Gwyrdalin relic or tablet with further pieces of the puzzle. So it's always still being rediscovered. Lore-wise vagabonds who travel from outside the Dales tell that what was once in the heartland of Old Gwyrdalin now lies deep within the marshes. After the fall of Gwyrdalin in the fabled War of Thaumaturges, the Shiverwash flooded the kingdom's plains. The marshes' foul waters have not always been poisoned. However, this pollution appeared only in recent years. What? Something going on there. Languages. All right, this should be fun. This should be interesting. See what they're doing with languages in the game. I don't recall catching anything about languages in the core book. I'm sure it's there. We just didn't look at all of it. Languages in the greater region surrounding the Dales are all dialects of Old Gwyrdalin, the language once spoken in the Old Kingdom. In the Dales, most of the population is illiterate, or can at best write in an everyday form of shorthand that has little to do with the Old Gwyrdalin script. Spoken Dalish has evolved as a softer and more drawn-out dialect, rich in made-up and cobbled-together practical farming terms, while many high-registered words were abandoned and forgotten. A Dales person can pinpoint another Dales person's Dale of origin by their accent if they've heard that specific Dales accent once or twice before. That's neat. Right on, Tortuga. Thanks for hanging out. It'll be here in the VOD. Got to get that dad time. Old Gwyrdalin is a dead language, which can most often be found as short inscriptions on ruins and relics of the Old Kingdom. Untrained Dalish cannot read Old Gwyrdalin script, and even if they could, most of the meaningful words would be lost on them. Old Ways practitioners normally cannot read Old Gwyrdalin any better than the average Dales person. Surprising. But they may learn to speak a twisted form of it as a kind of a cant, or some say as a means to talk to ancient spirits and creatures. Dalish scribes, few as they may be, learn to read Old Gwyrdalin script, but their vocabulary of the language varies depending on their training. Some Wanderland's fortune hunters learn to recognize keywords in Old Gwyrdalin such as beware, here lies, or curse. Or like don't open nuclear material enclosed. Stormhelm Gwyrdalin, also known as Helmian, has been altered by time and through deliberate changes by the Society of Scribes into a separate dialect, more slurred and rapid as befitting a militarized society, and into a different script more suited for long texts, whereas Old Gwyrdalin is graphically elaborate and concise, used for conveying ideas and feelings rather than long-winded records. That's neat. Old Gwyrdalin is still used in Stormhelm in a formal capacity in both writing and speech. The Charter's Cant is an encoded form of Helmian used by charter merchants to converse privately. That's cool. They have their own merchant language. And I'm sure they use that only for everybody's best interests and not to tell you where to go scam the Dales people. Dales people and Stormhelm folk revile and look down on each other's dialects. Oh, that's sad. Sometimes snubbing each other despite being quite capable of practical communication. Can't we all just get along? Nevertheless, Dalish scribes, who often learn their trade from Stormhelm, use Helmian script phonetically to write out words in Dalish. That's interesting. I'm not a linguist. I think it's a fascinating study. I had a buddy who was actually a linguist major, and we used to get into all sorts of fun conversations. But this is interesting. I appreciate the attention to detail here that as far as playing in the world and setting up the world, you can identify where somebody's from their accent, even if you're speaking the same Dalish. And then Helmian is kind of your academic dialect, academic/militaristic. We've got Charter's Cant, which is your secret merchant code between practitioners of that. And what was the other takeaway I had from this? I don't remember. I think I was going to go off on some rant about how languages have the power to define people, and they have the power to alter our perceptions of the world and the words that we use and the stories that we tell. Stories are the collection of many words in a particular order, but words themselves can also limit and or enable you to think of concepts that you might otherwise not be able to conceive of. And I wish I was a little more educated on this because it's just a fascinating thing to think about. But when you consider, like, for example, Inuit tribes who have 8 different names for snow, because to them snow takes many different forms that actually impacts their life. And places that don't see snow might not even use the word snow, and places in between, snow is snow or sleet, but maybe there's a handful of words. So the context of the world you live in and the words that you use can almost kind of shape your brain. And I love studying stuff like that. I think it's really fascinating. So I appreciate that at least the scaffolding for those ideas is here in the text. I think that's cool. Familiar faces. I think I'm going to jump at the... Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm going through this as slow as humanly possible. That was section 1 of chapter 1, Familiar Places. Oh, no. Hour and a half for one part of one chapter. Well, it is what it is. So what do we have coming up? We have Familiar Faces. We have Dalish Life, Bands and Brotherhoods, Valley by Valley, A Guide to the Dales, Making a Dalish Hero, Cooking and Crafting, Old Ways Magic, and Other Spells. Let's do... I'm going to commit myself to doing at least the Familiar Faces section. So that'll take us from page 40 to page 54, and then we'll see how we're feeling after that. And we might keep going because, honestly, just chilling and reading and rambling about things is kind of a nice vibe for a Sunday. So, Familiar Faces, Dale's people. Barring crows and field critters, Dale's people are the most common denizens of the Dales. Nevertheless, their numbers are too few to fill the vastness of their mountain valleys, and so one can walk the hills for an entire day without coming upon another Dalish soul. Practical and good-natured, as a rule, the Dalish toil for toil's sake and play for play's sake, minding their little communities and plots of land, heeding little of what lies beyond the ridgeline. And we have our Farkin here, who we just learned about, transplants from Stormhelm or the Wanderlands, who gave up the greater world to settle in the Dales. Now let's read this. Townspeople. Townsfolk are very few in the Dales, as there is only one true town to be found, Barley Town. However, in 2 other villages, town-like sensibilities are beginning to emerge. Pasture, thanks to its booming population and relative affluence, and Underbow, that, despite being no larger than most villages, is subject to a current of visitors from Stormhelm and entertains many of its customs. For the Dalish, the town is a place where trades and walks of life emerge that no longer require living close to the outdoors, which is where most Dales people spend most of their lives. Townspeople evoke eye rolls almost anywhere they go in the Dales, if they ever leave their town, so in return they roll their eyes at outsiders. For the time being, this is merely banter. Every denizen of Barley Town has family outside the town, and half of them were not born there. But the differences do exist. Townsfolk may be unaccustomed to outdoor activities as a weakness tag, or the rigorous label of village and farm life, but they may also have the luxury of acquiring more complete or refined education, or accumulating influence, wealth, and connections in ways that are not available out in a distant dale. Pepper says, Wildsea uses language as knowledge skills, which I think is cool. Like, of course, knowing the cactus person language means you know stuff about deserts. I agree. I like how Wildsea does language because each one basically has its own proficiency track, and depending on what proficiency you're at, it's like, can you glean the basics or can you get nuance or so on and so forth. So that is definitely something I like in Wildsea. I want to think this through here because I want to make sure I frame this correctly. So Barley Town is the only town. Stormhelm is the only city, and it's not even in the Dales. And everywhere else are villages or smaller. So I'm probably going to jump us back to the map here. Where is... I forgot its name already. Where's Barley Town? Am I blind? Got the Witchwood. That's a nasty place. Underbow is one of the growing villages. Of course, it's very close to Stormhelm, so that tracks. Pasture is also growing. Pasture and Underbow, the two most rapidly growing, are on the main north-south road to Stormhelm, so that tracks. Ravenholm, Woodend, Lastford, Soddenmore, Melcrest, there it is. It's right there in the middle. I don't know how my eyes could not pick that up. So here's Barley Town. This is our biggest town in the whole place. Decent road access to Stormhelm. It's, go through one mountain pass, and then you're heading on the main north-south road. So, yeah. Okay, cool. I just wanted that context. I wanted it, and so I went and I got it. All right. Okay. Dalish first names mostly fall into 3 categories. Single words that denote a natural feature, plant or animal, such as heath, zephyr, willow, or bear, or a feeling or idea such as solace, bravery, or felicity. This is cute. I love that they gave attention to names. This is making me think a memory of something. 7th Sea. 7th Sea, 2nd edition, starts their rulebook with like 100+ pages of setting information, and it goes through all the different nations and everything like that. And the thing that captured me most memorable thing for me about 7th Sea and Thea, which is the setting there, is every region or nation or type of people that you might say, they would say, this is how the naming structure works here. These are the demonyms that they use. This indicates land ownership. This doesn't. Each one had its own unique take, to the point where, based on where you are in the game and what somebody's name is, things about them just based on their name. And I think that's so cool. That is such a cool idea for groups that want to like pay very close attention to those sorts of things. Let's see. They rarely add adjectives or frills to such names as they feel it's too froofy. I love that. Is that even a word? Silent Zephyr, what a mouthful. Names that have no particular meaning in Dalish, but a ring that the parents like, such as Mila, Tiden, or Kahira. So vibe. We can do vibe-based naming. More elaborate names hailing from the distant past of the Dales people, such as Elswith, Loran. Oh, geez. Oh, okay, here we go. Challenge mode. Lorantadira. That's my attempt at that name. Or Alianora. Ooh, that's pretty. That is a pretty name. Alianora. Cool. These olden names are considered traditional but also odd. That would be like your Mildreds. Dalish last names can also fit the above categories, Aurora Beaks, or they may arise from one's dwelling place, Ridge of Ravenholm, or family trade, Lena Tanner. So this person's name is Ridge? And their surname is of Ravenholm? That sounds more like a place than a person. Those parents should have thought harder about that one. Layla Tanner. Villagers. A typical Dalish village is rich with different faces, trades, and walks of life. Everyone has a role, whether due to tradition, a personal calling, or the need to put food on the table. While craftspeople and artisans ply their trade, pillars of the community and influential householders care for the general well-being, plan for the coming winter, or weave petty plots born of pride or jealousy. Even children shoulder their own responsibilities, cleaning, helping, or learning a trade, yet some villagers shirk their duties to run in the fields, splash in the crisp brooks, or bask in the sun. Village folk stick together through thick and thin, and that makes all the difference. For survival in the rugged dales is a matter of us, not I. So we are not an individualistic society here. Neighbors, be they mortal enemies in times of peace, will lend a shoulder in a heartbeat during a storm or when someone falls ill. These close-knit communities can fight off terrible dangers or enshroud the darkest secrets so that all get to see another springtime bloom. We're all in it together. Here's Fondo, the Miller of Woodend. I'll let you guys read that for yourselves when you get the book, if you get the book. Farmsteaders. Most Dales people dwell in more or less secluded homes close to the land to which they tend. Farmsteaders have their own rhythm, slower and more measured than that of village life. They are burdened with endless chores that must be completed in time, or else the crops will fail, or livestock will fall prey to beasts. They contend daily with the elements and the dangers of the land, and sometimes find their villager brethren too soft. Knowing such perils, they hold in high regard those who venture into the wild. See Outlanders below. But farmsteaders are too tied up to leave the farming life, favoring its relative safety, stability, and comfort. Most Dalish farmsteaders welcome guests to their home and gladly share the bounty of the land, except in Upper Heartland, where a healthy dose of suspicion has been proven to prolong one's life, especially after dark. Upper Heartland, is the place next to the Witchwood, right? So that checks out. Let's confirm. Where's my map? There's my map. Yes, Upper Heartland is next to the Witchwood, where the monsters come out in the night and take your children and stuff. Okay. There's nothing quite like sitting on the porch among friends after a long day, gazing upon a bucolic tract of land with a strong beverage in hand. Dalish farmers relish such moments. And here we have Thedea of Highglade. He's got a pitchfork, and he looks like he looks like he wants some kids off his lawn, if I'm honest. Outlanders. Outlanders are Dale's people who must venture daily beyond home and croft and into the Dalish wilderness in search of sustenance or to fulfill their duties. That's already fascinating to me. There's a whole group of people who take their name from the fact that they like actually go out of the village and come back as part of how they make their living. They call them Outlanders. Like that's like an industry. That's funny. They tread through forests, up mountain slopes, down deep glens, and across rapid streams, endure harsh weather, and sometimes face off with wild beasts. This outdoor life forces them to become skillful at navigation, survival, and cross-country travel. Outlanders often return to the village with tales of their recent narrow escapes from the clutches of nature. While their stories and services are valued, other Dales people may find them too rugged, uncouth, or gruff, which isn't entirely unfounded, as their travels involve long periods of solitary marches. This is Aragorn sitting in whatever the tavern is known in Bree, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's a strider, he's a wanderer. Like we don't trust him." That's what this is. As the Dalish emissaries in the wild, Outlanders straddle the boundary between the familiar and the unknown. Every Outlander has seen a creature of twilight at least once in their life, even if for a moment, and some have had twilight sightings and encounters they'd rather forget. For this, most of them respect the unseen world and fear it. I love this phrase, twilight sightings. That is absolutely something I would make sure to like bring that phrase into the game with me if I'm running it. Make that a common parlance at the table, because it's cool, and for no other reason. Now, this fellow here is Nylam Loggins, and he looks like he's seen some stuff. He's also got flowers on his belt, though. You know, herbs maybe. Maybe he's got to mash these up for like a poultice or something. Garlic bulbs for repelling maybe some creatures of twilight. He's got a bunch of raven skulls going on. This is some sort of other critter. Looks like a mongoose or something. So yeah, he's a cool looking dude. What else has he got going on? A pouch of something here. I don't know what these are. Is this supposed to be currency? If they have a currency where there's a hole punched in it and you can put it on a leather cord on your belt, that might be a cool way to do it. And he's carrying a ton of wood. Right on. Wayfarers. Though most Dales people remain in their neck of the woods their entire lives, many others must travel for their trade, to deliver messages, or to visit other Dales. By foot, horse, or cart, these wayfarers journey on the high roads, mountain passes, dusty or muddy trails, and even goat paths until they reach their destination. More often than not, a short sojourn at the destination is followed by a new journey. Those living on the roads learn more about the goings-on in other Dales and beyond than do their Dale-bound or bushwalking fellows. At crossroads and taverns, reports and rumors are exchanged, embellished, and exchanged again, as are specialty goods and strange trinkets. A well-traveled wayfarer of keen ear knows a little bit of everything, from what furs fetch the highest price in Underbow to which suitor is likely to put a spell on Lastford's most eligible bachelor. Ew. So interesting. So the Outlanders, is that what they're called? Yeah, the Outlanders are the people who go into the wilderness. A wayfarer is somebody who, yes, does go out of the villages, but they're mostly traveling the roads from place to place. And they are conceived of differently in the cultural makeup of this setting. So that's neat. Here we have Nona Belladonna. We're not going to read about them, but they've got a big ox carrying a lot of stuff. A couple dresser drawers there. I don't know. I don't know that this is worth carrying personally. You know what I mean? Like, have a craftsman make a new one wherever you get to. I don't know that there's a market for that unless there's a specific like crafts person that makes like the best drawer sliders in the land. It's a big thing to carry for this poor animal. Give him a break. I also note that this dude has got some he's got some rich colors on. He's got some greens and some purples and some gold trim going on here. So he also has around his wrist a bunch of these tokens. Sorry, bumped the mic there. So I am suspecting that maybe that is the currency. That there's a hole punched in the currency and it gets carried on leather cords. Recluses. A sociable life is not for everyone. Some Dales people choose to live in seclusion, whether it is for hatred or fear of others, to find peace, to bear their guilt or suffering alone, to practice their art or trade privately, or to commune with nature. Thankfully for recluses, the Dales are sparsely populated, and living apart from others does not necessarily mean living away from them. Still, most build their home, a cabin, a hovel, or a well-equipped cave deep in the wilds and far from villages and farmland, lest some irksome child find their way to their abode. Some recluses travel occasionally to a nearby hamlet for supplies or a small dose of company. Others never lay eyes on another soul for months, years, and even decades. Those who live alone in the woods or on the mountains are bound to encounter the twilight and soon learn how to stay out of its way or stave off its dark influences, or are taken by it. Some even befriend creatures of twilight, risky, and develop strange relationships with them. By murky ponds or gnarled oaks, they speak to them in ancient tongues through the night and learn many things about the world, things which no Dalish villager could ever fathom. For this, sensible Dales people look at recluses as twilight-touched, if not as full-fledged creatures. Yeah, that's a way to put it, D Priest. Outlanders are rangers, wayfarers are bards, or merchants, I suppose. You just don't see that because it's not a class identity usually. But someday I'm going to go on a rant about how neither rangers nor bards should be classes in traditional gaming. They should be backgrounds. There. Put a little seeding of future content out there. I have opinions about things. I have so many opinions. I made a whole channel just to share my opinions. So recluses here. This is your... Yeah, she looks kind of grumpy. Twilight touched, yes. Yeah, that's a really cool concept. She's got her herbs. She's got a scowl on her face. She's got a little barrel slung over her shoulder to collect more stuff. And there's also like a plague doctor mask kind of thing going on here almost. But that might not be for any explicit purpose other than to conceal her identity, or maybe it's a sort of like ritualistic thing about... not showing your true face to these creatures of twilight, potentially. It's cool. It's cool. I love it when art tells stories. And all the art here tells stories, as you could tell. This is Bulb. Bulb of the Rusty Bog. Thank you, Prancing Pony. That is the name of the place I was trying to think of. We're on to the animals. The Dalish has always felt a deep sense of stewardship for the natural world, and so animal life plays a central role in the story of the Dales. Household animals are kept for companionship and practical considerations, such as pest control. My cat brought me something to my front door last night to eat for dinner. Wild beasts of burden are vital for farming and travel. The land's wildlife inspires the Dalish with its beauty and terrifies them with its ferocity, each animal's habits and qualities becoming the basis for its own symbolism. I'll read that again. The land's wildlife inspires the Dalish with its beauty and terrifies them with its ferocity, each animal's habits and qualities becoming the basis for its own symbolism. So there is sort of an animism here. If not religiously, then in the milieu of the stories that are being told. I like it. That's cool. That is cool. It harkens to, many other tribal traditions all around the globe of reverence for animals and taking lessons from them, and the crafty raven or the slippery fox or whatever it might be, that is present here as well. Domesticated animals. The Dalish strive for diversity amongst their livestock, breeding for strength, endurance, and intelligence. Okay. Cows, goats, and sheep comprise their main herds, and they also keep pigs, rabbits, and various fowls. Bees are vital to agriculture and brewing, and their keepers are highly respected. That's cool. So they're making mead out here. Making mead with the honey. Barn cats and herding dogs are considered working animals, not pets. Well, we saw a cat in a tavern, and I don't think I guess that it's not a barn cat, but it's still a working animal, I'm sure, getting the rats out. While crag horses and ponies are adapted to the rugged terrain, farmers rely more on draft goats, maned oxen, and riding ibex for most heavy labor and travel. This is a neat detail that I like and did not need to be included here. And the fact that they did just helps create more of a sense of what things are like. With a rustic fantasy, you could say, yeah, sure, everybody's got horses. But I think it goes to reinforce the idea that travel, yes, you can have work horses, but horses are also primarily a method of fast travel. And there isn't a lot of travel in the Dales. So I think it's neat that they went to the trouble to like downplay the horses a little bit in this setting. It's an element that if you were to introduce it, it would actually have drastic changes. Travel would become more frequent, potentially. Or because travel's not needed, therefore they're not breeding horses up as much. It goes both ways. The Red Marshals favor the Westerling horse breed of Stormhelm's West Province, known for its size and speed, but poor performance in rough terrain. So there is the pre-generation characters for the Tinderbox demo had a character who was a Red Marshal. And we haven't seen that just yet, but I think they're kind of like a roving law enforcement kind of thing. Wildlife. The Dales feature multiple landscapes and a wide range of geological and ecological diversity. Even their most inhospitable regions, such as tundra and moraines, sustain extensive ecosystem. The dramatic changes in elevation between the Dales create distinct life zones. Yeah, they do. I'll tell you a story about that. The dramatic, just read that, including montane, subalpine, and alpine. These in turn feature habitats such as low wetlands, glacial lakes, rolling foothills, plateau grasslands, dense forests, alpine meadows, and alvar wastelands. So a lot of words in here I've never seen before. So that's fun. Yeah, as far as like the elevation and the change of habitable zones, I don't know where everybody's at. But I'm up here in Colorado at the base of the Rocky Mountains. And so I'm at like 5,000 feet, I think. And where I am right now is kind of, you might call it meadow, but it's really arid steppe or arid plains. So the history of this region was a lot of the tribes native to the area roaming around on horseback. Settlers set up trading posts where the rivers were met up, and that's where the town that is next to me is based off of. But it's kind of neat because I'm in this little basin, and I'm sitting above a reservoir, which was just a river, but they dammed it up to turn it into a reservoir. And you can kind of tell the path that glacial melt would have had to happen in order for this region to develop the way it was. So I know that like the glaciers that were here however many thousands of years ago went that way down to where the river is to go down into where the trading post city is. And if I get in my car and I drive 5 to 10 minutes that way, it's like I just went to a different alien planet. If I drive like 2 minutes that way, I can get down into these little crags, and all of a sudden there's these bushes and rocks and all sorts of crazy stuff. And it's really striking. I mean, I don't know if that's even that remarkable to share, or maybe I'm just sheltered and I haven't lived many places. But it's really cool that there's such a drastic change. Just like you crest this one hill, this one ridge, and for whatever reason, I think largely to do with the winds that come down from the mountains, these places have developed entirely differently. It's really fascinating, and I enjoy it. That's one of the things I enjoy about living where I am. Cool. Forest and valley. The Dales landscapes are home for many wild creatures. Apex predators such as the Dalish lynx and gray wolf rarely approach human settlements. It is the blade elk and red deer who might pose danger as they become fierce fighters during rutting season. Yeah, stay away from those guys. The cantankerous marsh moose is a common sight in the wetter regions, as is the bushy-tailed fox. Many herbivores move between meadow and forest, but the chamois, is that how I say that? No idea. And ibex remain on the high cliffs most of the year. Marmots and brown hares build underground burrows on the hills to survive the bitter cold of winter. All right, cantankerous marsh moose. Definitely giving me the idea of that what is the name of that? The fens and the bogs to the south. We're going back to the map. Going back. Just called the marshes. Okay. I can just imagine like a cursed super moose down there that has to be dealt with. Put it out of its misery kind of a deal. In the water, fed by some snowmelt, the Dale's crystalline lakes and rivers are intensely cold, yet sustain bountiful ecosystems. The northern lakes of Withermere and the Five Fair Sisters remain frozen until summer. Freshwater fish range in size from the petite grayling to the imposing silverbrook salmon, one of the Dale's largest predators. Annual fish migrations help nourish mammals and birds, such as the giant otter. Warmer waters, such as Loch Friedel and the Aldenweald Lakes, are home to catfish and various crustaceans, really, as well as muskrats and long-legged shore birds. Why am I surprised to see crustaceans in lakes? Am I out of touch with biology? I think crustaceans, I think saltwater. There must be some sort of critter that I'm just completely not thinking of. Anyway, in the sky, the Dales continually ring with birdsong, from the haunting blue loon to the fluting blue rock thrush. Giant amber eagles rule the mountain skies. These elegant killers are capable of taking down young, again, don't know this word, chamois. Clever birds such as rock ptarmigans and wood grouse change their seasonal feathers, blending into the environment. Autumn witnesses dancing clouds of migratory birds and waterfowl returning to nesting sites in the southern Dales. Dalish snowfinches are revered for their song and ability to survive the winter on acorns and frozen berries. This is just cool. I mean, if you have a character and you want them to be knowledgeable about the birds and the fish and what's going on, and you want them to actually be able to represent that into the story, you don't now have to be an expert in birds and fish in our life, in our world, because they gave you at least enough to start from, and then you can go hit Wikipedia if you want to play the fish expert character or whatever, what have you. Crawfish and crawdads in freshwater, huh? Yeah. I don't know. Interesting. We're learning. It's a nature channel now. Didn't you know? All the honey in my tea sank to the bottom, and now it is extra delicious. So yeah, more great art here. Got some flying fish going on. Cattails. Strangers. Strange folk from faraway places travel through the Dales on occasion, although never in great numbers. For the Dalish, they seem bewildering and outlandish, even intimidating. This is rooted in the instinctual thought that even among their own people, these people must be considered strange if they are traveling to a far-off backwater such as the Dales. It is as if every Dales person wonders suspiciously, why are you here? Helmians, the Stormhelm folk, the city people of Stormhelm, are forged in frost and flame, hardened like their granite walls and steel suits of armor. In the Dales, it's said of them that they hide their true fire behind their haughty, marble-like visage, scheming and shifting when unseen, yet speaking in honeyed words and thistle tongues. For Helmians, this is merely a description of sophistication bred by an organized society. Despite its proximity, few travelers from the vaulted city reach the Dales. The promise of the uncouth charms of the Dales gutters at the mention of travel in the shadow of the Witchwood. Visitors generally consist of ambitious yet influence-devoid charter of changers merchants looking for a golden opportunity, as well as other traders, and in dry years some shepherds approach as well, mostly remaining confined to Underbow. On rare occasions the less scrupulous arrive seeking their fortunes or fleeing judgment. So yeah, we saw on the map Stormhelm is just north of Underbow, and so most of the interplay is going to be there. I do think it would be really fun though, as an inciting incident, to take a Helmian and get them all the way into one of the small remote places, showing up with like a full suit of armor, and everybody's like, what the hell are you doing here? That sounds like it would be a fun like kickoff moment for a campaign. Cregan Highlanders. The Dalish say the Cregan Highlanders were born of brine and blade, people of sea and windswept cliffs. Bitter and brutal, they claim whatever land lies beneath their feet, submitting only to their strange sense of honor and cryptic, feral druids. Owing to centuries-old hostilities against the Dalish, the invading, tenacious Kragan evoke worry and respect among the valley dwellers. An embattled people squaring off with the land's monsters and creatures, they seem to look at the Dalish with sour marvel, like wolves looking at sheep who somehow evade them again and again. The nomadic Kragan clans have long posed a westerly threat to the bucolic Dalish way of life. Their cattle-raiding parties make regular attempts at crossing the Milken Rush, but after losing life and limb upon the jagged cliffs, their dwindling numbers are quickly dispatched by the Red Marshals. Brutal. In Cedargate, however, where the rush is fordable, woodwards have been pushing back the Kragan's increasingly ferocious attacks for decades. Yeah, that is a pressure cooker waiting to blow. But the Kragan are just as likely to come into the Dales seeking to trade as they are to steal its bounty. I kind of doubt that. I kind of doubt that. Some Dales people think they are fickle as the sea they come from. Others respect their way of holding no grudges, as if all is fair game. On occasion, Kragan seekers and traders arrive at Lastford unarmed, and some even find new kinship with the Dales folk. Well, good for them. Good for them. I wonder if this is meant to be a Kragan Highlander. Very well could be. It's a pretty intricate sword with a bunch of runes on it. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Cool. Wanderlands drifters. The world is wide and vast, and on occasion the twisting paths of the Wanderlands cast out wanderers and vagabonds into the dales, rogues who clothe themselves in weak smiles, foul deeds living behind their distant stares. That's some brutal language. Traders who carry wonderfully enticing candies and enchanted trinkets on their colorful carts. Refugees seeking sanctuary from monstrosities, both human and not. Or daydreaming walkabouts in search of something they cannot name. Some are cursed or injured. Others follow rumors of hidden relics. Others yet wish to escape their pasts or remake their lives. The people who come from the Wanderlands are strangers indeed. Oh, yeah, they have a bear pelt on. Look at that. I'm assuming that's a bear pelt. Those look like bear claws to me. Okay, cool. Check this out. So they had these pages. They call these shrouded pages in the last book. And I skipped them because they are meant to be kind of the advanced rules. But I think in the context of this book as well, this is probably our alert that, like, hey, this might not be the general knowledge of the player characters. So we're skipping that. Although I'm sure you could freeze the stream and read it all if you wanted to. Just buy the book. It's faster. So that gets us to where I wanted to get to as far as ending the chapter on people. And I said we would check in and see how everybody's doing. I'd like to actually, let's go back over to here. I would like to, for those of you that can jump in chat, I know quite a few of you are listening in at other responsibilities. But I'm curious to know, for those of you here, what has stood out to you about this so far? Obviously, you're listening to me talk about it for 2 hours straight, but what's grabbed you? I know somebody earlier was saying that just the art alone was reason enough to back, and I tend to agree. I think it's a beautiful art direction and style that's been carried consistently through. But if you have any other thoughts, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to sit here for a minute, finish my tea, think deep thoughts. Think about what it might look like to run this game using this setting, because so much of the work is done for me, and that makes it more palatable to try. So, yeah, there's a lot to like. And I think there's an entire chapter as well that goes into each of the dales one by one. Does it? Yes. So there's a subsection later on called Valley by Valley, a guide to the Dales. And every single one of the towns on that little map that we pulled up has, I don't know, is it a 2-page spread? Is it more? 1, 2. It looks like they all get at least a 2 to 3-page spread. Some get more. So, yeah, it's cool. And you get a lot more tag suggestions in those segments of challenges you can put out there, tags, statuses, everything else. And I'll remind you guys, we got to page 53 out of 419, and we also even skipped some stuff. So again, this is just like the core book, where I said over and over and over again, this is an incredibly rich product. I don't even know what they're selling pre-orders to right now as far as how much it costs, but we should look that up. Dupree says, that last part about how outsiders are seen, it's amusing to me how they managed to show the dark side of a small bucolic communities in a more cozy way. You ain't from around here, but cozy. Yeah, it's not gross. It could be. You could play that up, obviously, if you wanted to. You're going to have the like the cantankerous village elder, which is that's a fantasy trope as well. The one who's always like, we shouldn't be entreating with any of these outsiders. But they're also always the one that like step up and pick up a weapon when they're getting invaded, and they stand shoulder to shoulder. So really love the vivid descriptions. Yeah. Even if I didn't run this game system, it's great content. This is, yes. I should have known that the writing would be good. And by good, I mean it's purposeful writing. It's evocative. It's selling you on a tone. I don't know what my hesitation was going for a setting book. I think honestly part of it is, and as RPG players we know this, we're always going to be a little hesitant. Maybe not always. Maybe some of you have got your stuff together, but I don't. I'm always going to be a little hesitant to dive into a new setting and learn all these different places and the town names and the people types and the this and the that. I have an inordinate amount of Pathfinder PDFs, from first edition era, not to mention second edition Lost Omens books, that I haven't even cracked open. There's so much material out there in this hobby, and I will say though, this is striking me as advantageous in kind of a way that content that you explore in Golarion, maybe you don't need to get to this level of what am I even trying to say? I showed this the other day on stream. This is the Land of the Linnorm Kings supplement from Pathfinder First Edition. So this is a book about all of the different little, right? So the different regions of an entire country. And it doesn't go into a fraction of the depth that this does. And yet at the same time, this is almost a smaller area than this 1 out of 41 countries in Golarion. So when I'm learning about Golarion, studying Golarion, it's almost like I'm learning about a particular town or a city. And then the rest of it is all kind of filtered in from the general larger scope of the setting. So I don't need to read the Mwangi Expanse book to know how to run something in the Linnorm Kingdoms. Whereas here it feels like this is such a robust and strong presentation of a all-inclusive but much smaller region. And I've been enjoying reading through this to this point. Again, 53 pages out of 419 in the setting book, not to mention what we didn't touch in the rules. So, yeah. Fertile territory for an appropriate flavored conflict. Yeah. Stranger comes to town with a newfangled thing and people struggle with that change. Yeah. Yeah, especially if it's some sort of old relic from old Gwyrdalin. If I remember the name of the old kingdom right. And whether or not it's actually like causing trouble, or if somebody brings in some thing that they got from a creature of Twilight, whether or not it's actually causing trouble, you'd have those people in the village who are like, my cows didn't give me the amount of milk they normally did this morning, and it's because of this thing in town. We have to run this thing out of town. It's messing with the cows. The goats are getting sleepy in the middle of the day, and just making these conclusions about what they think might be going on. They're very suspicious people. Yeah, so contrasting a broad coverage versus deep development and region size. Genre expectations are probably it. Yeah, because, yeah. Again, and I mentioned about the Golarion kitchen sink the other day. But that is set up to serve multiple genre expectations. which is why it's an entire publishing line within Paizo's publishing line. The Lost Omens line itself is its own product line with its own team, And it always was. They've changed names of it many, many times over the years. So this is cool. This feels, I guess what I'm getting at is this feels approachable. This feels doable. My hesitation of thinking I would be approaching this like maybe I would the Lost Omens World Guide, where it's like, here's a rundown of 41 nations of a place that's as big as all of Europe and the northern half of Africa combined. You're not going to touch all of that, but this is the world, right? It's a big place. There's a big place here too. We're just not seeing it because the game is saying the genre expectations and the tone, rustic fantasy, you're not going to need that. And we can just hint at it and say, the Beyond Lands or whatever. We know there's an ocean to our east. We don't even know necessarily what's to our west. We don't even really know what's past the Shiverwash. Is that the river? It just mentions that there's some like wanderers out there who occasionally will go out and usually never be heard from again. But if they do come back, they're usually like, yeah, that was terrible. The map also gives me the very same vibe of the Shannara books, where you have your small little dale and you have some cities scattered around. I mean, this is even less than that because there are no cities to speak of. Whereas in Shannara, I think there's an elvish city to the west, and there are 4 different races, so you have all that going on. Focusing this on human as an ancestry race, whatever you want to call it, and then having everything else just be something different, something that is potentially inherently dangerous and unknown. Not dangerous because it's different, though. Dangerous because it's different in a way that it doesn't obey the laws of nature or existence, almost. Taps into powers that you can't comprehend. So it's not just, oh, they have pointy ears and now we get to be racist against them. It's like, no, stop. They're a creature of twilight. You don't want to mess with these things. So I appreciate that as well. Yeah, very cool. I think we might come back to this. Oh, let me put this on screen because it's going to make me seem really smart. Let me put this on screen. Let's go back here for 1 second. For ease, when trading in distant dales, merchants also utilize iron rings and coins due to their portability and inherent value. They are soon crafted into nails, tools, horseshoes, or arrowheads. So check this out. I thought maybe this was currency. And it is, but it's currency by value of just being the iron itself. Isn't that cool? That's so cool. It's like going back to the gold standard. It's like, and even that is an abstraction. Humans value gold because it's shiny, and we tried to attribute value to that, and that became foundational for certain forms of currency in exchange. This is like, no, you want to like repair your horseshoes? Like, let me give you 3 of these iron tokens or whatever it might be. I'm sure they weigh them. Similarly, various types of ingots are accepted, including hardtack counted as meal, half meal, or quarter meal, metal, salt, and even tea. So they're trading in goods to their bartering economy. Many of these are personally stamped, adding value due to the quality and distance traveled. What? Why? Why would that matter? But no official currency is minted in the Dales. There it is. So the fact, again, I wanted to pull this up because I thought it made me look smart and validated my guess. But the fact that I could pick that up from the artwork before even getting to the section, that is some unified design right there. That is some really good communication between art, design, and the developer team, whatever team you want to call it. In an odd paradox, the Dalish view precious metals such as silver and gold as having value detached from currency use. Dedicated panners and miners focus on exposed lodes and placer gold, while true excavation is frowned upon. These small flakes and nuggets are used in jewelry, gold mending, and dusted art instead of becoming coinage. Okay, I mean, that tracks. That makes sense. That's interesting that they frown on true excavation. It's like they don't want to tarnish the beauty of the thing. This is the thing itself. The jewelry, the gold mending, the dusted art. This is the thing. And to extract from that and turn it into a currency or an exchange model is almost like them saying, don't do that. That's going to cheapen the thing itself. That's cool. Very cool. I've got to say as well, I appreciate the richness here that gives you basically the jumping off point to think through these things. And so I think, my initial fear is that this would be too much. It would be too much to hold in your head. It's a whole, once again, it's a whole new setting, a whole new system. But the fact that it is so in line with how the rules are intended to operate and the experience the game is trying to get you to have. Anyway, probably should have backed for this physical as well. Wonder if it's too late to get it. I'll have to put it on a list. Cool. Well, I appreciate all of you hanging out, even those of you who are just lurking and listening. It's greatly appreciated that you're hanging around what we are putting together here. A little bit of a crazy start, scheduling it for the wrong time of day, starting my stream on mute, dropping internet halfway through. But I appreciate those of you that hung in there. Anybody picking this up and watching the VOD, of course, go ahead and like the video or stream, whatever it happens to be at the time that you encounter it. Feel free to drop a comment. There's so much that we could talk about with this. Let me know if you want me to continue taking a look at this book. We have content at least for another stream, not even counting skipping chapters 2 and 3, because we won't touch those. Those are for the GMs, and we don't want to just blast those out. So yeah, share that out in the comments. We have a Patreon, and put that banner back up. We have a Patreon community that links to our Discord and full of wonderful people. I've done a really poor job of explaining all the different tiers of the Patreon, because ultimately, I genuinely believe the $3 tier gets you in the Discord and into the community, and that's the core value. Everything else is just upselling in a way, but I tried to make it have some value, so I'm going to continue to tinker and tweak with that. But we have a $1 Patreon tier that I'm probably going to remove. Maybe, I don't know. It didn't work the way I expected it to, and I don't know if I want to bother troubleshooting it. And then the 3, which gets you into the Discord. Then there's the 5, which is the crewmate. So we do have a voice channel that has exclusive access for crewmate and above, and those would be times where I'm hosting a back and forth of voice chat. So it's weird for me at this stage to be like, oh, there's some inherent value to being able to talk to me. But we have other voice channels as well where anybody can join. So I don't know. I'm figuring it out as I go. So that is the London Hour voice channel in the Discord. You can get to that with the $5 crewmate tier. $10 tier is the specialist, and that's where I have the Signal newsletter. So that's a PDF that I put out, which is kind of a written newsletter recapping what's gone on with the channel over the prior month, what sorts of games might be coming up. And I also every time, write some sort of feature article about my thoughts on an element of RPGs or topics that have come up in the past month. So I do have on the Discord the first issue. It's actually issue 0, because it's kind of like the annual. I think I might do just every year do a free annual issue for everybody. So that one you can read no matter what level you're at. But I think it's a 3-page article about how this channel got here. Speaking of other things I messed up all day today, I just realized I never changed the overlay to the Discovery Core overlay. So we've been on the LSS overlay all day. That's fun. So that's the specialist tiers for the Signal newsletter. And I'm also planning to do some forms of actual, call it publication if you want to, but there are like some custom rule sets I want to make for things that I would be able to make available to people at that tier. There's a little rules hack I've worked on for Girl by Moonlight. There are things I want to do with Legend in the Mist in particular. So that's going to be there as well. And then from there, it's like the nonsense Patreon tiers, the $25, the $50, the $100 Patreon tiers. There's really no reason that anybody needs to be at those tiers. If you are, I appreciate you. I love you so much. And I thank you for your support. But that's where you start to get into our mission control, where mission control is like the story-driven part of the channel itself. So I mentioned the other day, we've had people use their little tokens that they get to name the planet that London Station orbits and the 2 moons that are around it. So we have Eidolon, Therion, and Kippa. And it's just a fun way, I think, to be able to interact and create official London Station content, whether you're creating a character, or you're creating a spaceship, or you're creating an organization, or somebody who's nested into the cybersphere or whatever. So it's been fun because everybody's like, oh, what if we set this planet up to do it like this? I'm like, well, you got to buy it with your tokens. So it's kind of a fun little mini game all to itself. So that is how the Patreon's set up. But again, you're going to get 99% of everything that you could ever get from this channel at the $3 tier. And it's just a wonderful group of people that all seem to be on the same page of being mutually supportive, accepting, welcoming, all the good things. So there is that. We are wrapping up, though. I think I've said all the things you're supposed to say. And do we have any friends out there who are streaming? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So this is our buddy Zachary. And I didn't realize Zachary has also only recently started streaming, like a couple months ago. But he does really great art. He's a writer, plays games, does all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to go head over there. You can go pop in with me if you so choose, just to say hello. We always want to support our friends. And with that said, thank you all for hanging out on London Station again. I'm going to fix this before we actually leave. Put the right overlay on. And I will bid you all a fantastic rest of your Sunday afternoon and a great rest of the week ahead of you as well. Take care.